We did have to wait for you. Welcome everyone to our
How you doing? Good, thanks.
commission work session on Monday, June 24th. I'm Commissioner Bolos. Commissioner Thrower is here with me. Commissioner Harvey is excused for this meeting. Item 1 for the meeting is discussion or approve or action for approval of the minutes for the commission work session held on June 10th, 2024. For a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are now starting our agenda item 2, which was supposed to be at 12:30. We're a few minutes late. There are more people here than on my agenda, so I'm just gonna go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. Stephanie Russell, Weaver County Economic Development.
Gary Myers, Weaver County Engineer.
Chad Meyer, Hopper, engineering.
Yuri Maximute, partner in the development.
Eagle Maximum, also partner.
Wade Rumsey.
Charlie, you work planning?
Christopher Crockett, the attorney's office.
Jessica Park with the county commission. Yes.
With me, Cider Plan.
Thank you.
Greg Bateman.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, this is a discussion regarding Winston Park Development Rezone General Plan Amendment and Development Agreement. Charlie, you're listed first, so
I
take it
am.
away.
I want to be super brief, so the applicant has some time to chat with you guys. In your last meeting, you talked to, had a public hearing and talked a little bit about the Winston Park potential development, the rezone, the development agreement, as well as the proposed general plan amendment. A couple of things that came out of that meeting with some good direction, one of which I've got a sample of the development agreement in front of you. Just take your, I'll guide your attention to page 9, the development agreement. Paragraph 9.6.1, Parks and Open Space. That paragraph talks about the $5,000 per lot donation that we had originally worked out with the developer. Actually, we started at 2,000 a lot, we went up to 5,000 a lot. And my understanding is you guys are hoping to see that at 7,500, so that's in the development agreement that would need to change there. If you look at the bottom of the page, 9.6.2.4, this is a provision that says they've got to go back into phase 1 and get a trail right of way to the west. I think you guys saw that in your packet. Commissioner Harvey mentioned in the meeting that he wanted to see that be a street. So they need to purchase the whole lot to make a street connection instead of a pathway connection. So that's one of those other items. And then last but not least, something that Commissioner Harvey brought up, and I think you guys echoed, was owner occupancy requirements and moderate income housing. If you look at page 11, 9.9.6, as well as 9.10. Both of those talk about 9.1 or 9.9.6 is the owner occupancy requirements for the patio homes. And then 9.10 is the alternatives for moderate income housing. So what that alternative says is if they have residences, whether it's the patio homes or any of the other residences that's 1,000 square feet or less, or if it's deed restricted to be moderate income, then some of these other provisions like the park donation, the high efficiency appliances, the certain things that would cost the developer a little bit more money would be waived so that they could actually, we're trying to keep things affordable in this case. So I just wanted to give you guys those items. If there's anything else that you guys recall from the discussion last week, feel free to call them out. Otherwise, the developer's here to give you his ask. It's both of their asks.
Commissioner Thrower, you have questions now, or do you want to let them?
I'll, yeah,
Okay,
the essence of time,
okay.
I'll save my
Sure.
question for
Wait.
later. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad you went over that, Charlie, because it's really just what we want to focus on is those couple of issues. One of the comments I think was made was, I'd like to see a little more contribution. And as we've gone through this process over the last, let's say 7-8 months, I feel like as developers, we've really worked with planning to make sure that as we've gone through this process, that we are implementing some of these things that would be a benefit to this subdivision and the area. Some of those things, with which I found in your general plan, which is you talked about the smart growth principles, and we've talked about some of those that are like, we're subdividers, and some of those would be that we've added into our development agreement, like installation of a smart controller, you know, efficiency appliances, thermostat, which really we have to then make sure that that is a benefit of, you know, to the builder to make sure he understands that, because for us to be able to really, as a developer, to enforce that, look, that'd be a little bit of a challenge, but we found a way to do it through our CCNRs and also making sure that as we talk to those developers. The other thing was connectivity. You know, here's just a kind of gives you a better idea here of and I just wanted to talk about that because it's a very important point of what we're trying to do here. You can kind of see where the phase one of Winston Park is and then how it goes into phase two. These were lots that were surrounding that, say, cul-de-sac area on that side there, where we had to then go to a person that we had under contract to sell that lot to say, hey, we got to make some changes here to make that connectivity happen. And then when we went through the whole process of the connectivity, there's additional pathways, pedestrian pathways, one out on 1800 South, it's kind of on the upper part of the page. And then one that's on the east side, which would be the right-hand side, another pedestrian pathway there. And then we talked about a western pedestrian pathway over in phase one, which those lots were sold, done, dusted, and it's been quite a thing there. And so the connectivity along with those things there. In addition, we worked with Charlie in the planning to say, hey, we would like to have a kind of a masonry wall that goes all along the frontage. So these lots that are on 1800 South don't have that. Plus, you know, and that's an expensive exercise. That's a big benefit, I think, not only for that, which 1800 South will be a major road there, but also it is a benefit for us and that community because those lots that are facing them will be shielded a little bit from which I think will be a very busy road there. And so that's 1,200 feet of fence along there that is, you know, from the developer's cost to do that. And then on the map, you see those where the patio homes are. You know, we did have a park in there. And, you know, going through working with the parks and then how this evolved is, you know, came to you with another work session, talked about those patio homes. And we see that as a real benefit as well. We added an additional pedestrian pathway from what we call the emergency road, which is in phase one down kind of where it's the bottom and it goes through. And, you know, and then we've added those things that owner occupied. And then they built with, you know, hardly any steps, then also the roof structure, so it's not repetitive. We'll have to make sure that the planning is reviewed. I feel like there's a lot of those things that we work through in terms of getting to where we're at that would add a lot of benefit to this phase two. And so, I guess we're looking at what are you really looking for as a more of a contribution, I guess, for this subdivision? You know, the other part that was brought up was the donation part. Back when we even first started this, which was in August of 2023, we went to the Parks District and said, hey, we would like to donate $5,000 to, you know, each of the lots in phase two. They gave us a letter saying, okay, great. We did go through a process of 2,000 because we're going to consider the whole entire subdivision. And then when we went through the patio home thing, we said, yeah, you know, it would be 5,000. That would make the most sense. I know since that time, you guys have gone through more of an analysis and it's 7,500. And I know that was something that was reviewed in the month of April, May timeframe. And so we learned about that, we feel like in the 11th hour. And it's, you know, where we've been, where we've gone through, we feel like that $7,500 it's good to know now as we move forward and develop property in the future. But we've been basing kind of the whole development with the $5,000 per lot in, you know, for the Parks Department. So I guess in sum, I think we've provided a lot of those types of things in the general plan that would fit really well in this phase two. We're talking about 27 lots, 27, and then 24 of the patio home type thing. So you're looking at 51 total residences in this whole development here. And so, any thoughts, questions?
So question of
Yeah.
Mike, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So the 51 lots would be, for the park district, would be 5,000 for those 51 lots is what you're proposing.
Yes.
Am I right there?
Well, that's,
Except for the lots on that agreement, Charles, that are under 1,000 square feet. Because Commissioner Harvey asked us to look at low-cost housing,
Right.
he told us he wanted 3 bedrooms, around about 1,300 square feet, single level, no steps. We actually went and did all that. But we also have put some 2-bedroom units to make it even more affordable. So the ones under 1,000 square feet, there would be no fee, as Charlie's already pointed out. The rest, we believe that we should pay $5,000 on the patio homes. We're prepared to go more for the lots. We're not happy about the 7,500, but we would be happy to contribute another $1,000, which means $6,000 for the rest of the building lots in phase 2.
Okay.
For the patio homes.
Which is this section here.
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, where the single family.
Yeah.
Houses are.
So you'd go 6,000 for this. Is that,
For all the lots, which are at least a quarter of an acre to a
Okay,
third
So
of an
the
acre.
27 lots, right, Igor?
Correct.
Be
27.
6,000
Yes.
and none of these would have a donation.
No,
These-
no, no, no.
Yeah, go ahead.
There'd be a percentage. So we're looking at that percentage now. So we have got 24 that are aligned on that property. And they've been designed in lots of 8. If you see the entries from the main street,
Mhm.
there's one entry at the top which services 8. There's a second entry servicing 8, and then there's a third entry servicing 8 that links into phase 1. So for the units that get built in 2-bedroom under 1,000 square feet, which we still haven't determined, there is no fee. Because that's what the rules say, right, Charles? Back me up here.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so the other units, we're talking about 1,300 square feet, which is a normal 3-bedroom, double garage, 5,000 feet, $5,000.
okay,
And the rest of these lots, $6,000. So we're giving more than what we originally argued. Our whole problem here is that we started this negotiation process and you asked us to meet with the Parks Department back in August of 2023, which is over 9 months ago. We have a letter here saying that 5,000 has been approved and been accepted. As Wade said the last minute, April, May, you guys changed the rules. We don't think we should be the benefactors of those changes, certainly not in total, because you're going through transition periods. So new guys come on board, they will know those rules because you've changed them, but we didn't. And we didn't plan on that, neither did we budget on that.
I get that. So your initial agreement with, or
Yep,
proposition, I should say, with the Parks District was the 71 or 72 lots.
no.
It was the same 27.
It was the same?
Yeah, it was
Yes,
the 27 lots.
it didn't include the 24. You gained another.
Okay.
Because we had a
24.
park in
All
there
right,
before,
so
and that's when we came to you. and
What's
others.
changed was the 24.
Correct,
You didn't have the discussion with the Park District
that's correct.
because
We-
they weren't basically platted at that. point.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's
Yes, yes, correct.
Okay, so give me what's the total value that was proposed back then versus the total value now that goes to the Park District?
Well, the way we looked at it in terms of the dollar amount.
Yeah, just dollar, I just want the
Yeah.
total amount,
Okay, so on the 51 lots.
right?
Okay, so that would mean including the 27 and the 24.
Got it,
That's $255,000.
okay,
Okay, so now so if you were to break it down, obviously, the 24 lots, which would be the patio homes, that would be 120,000.
okay,
And the 27 lots would be 148,000.
Okay.
You know, if you just take 27 times the
Right.
5,000, right?
right,
So that's what you're looking at there, in terms of the donation.
okay.
Except for the under 1,000.
Yeah, so-
Except for
So
the
you
one,
don't, and
so
you
there-
don't know
Don't
what
know
that
that.
number is, so
We don't, but let's say, for example, let's take 50%. To answer your question, if I took to the 27 lots by 6,000, and you've got a calculator there, which comes to 162. Then if I took half of the 24, let's say 12 at 5, it's another 60. The total's about 222. We love
Okay.
that number too,
okay,
222,
right,
which is more than the original proposal, because the original proposal was only going to be actually 30 lots.
right,
Now we've increased that because we've been able to do this affordable housing which is what Commissioner Harvey asked us to look at. So the contribution's 222,000 to the parks.
222. That's
222.
the number I was looking for.
Correct. If we take 50% of those patio homes, it won't be less. It won't be more, it might be less. So you might have more money. That'd be the bare minimum.
It might be less
No,
that are under 1,000.
yes,
Yeah,
correct,
yeah.
correct. So instead
Depends
of
what the market
50%,
demands, isn't it?
we're researching that to find out exactly what the percentage of people who want to buy a 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot compared to a 3-bedroom, 1,300 square foot.
And commissioners, the zero fee for buildings under 1,000 square feet or buildings that are deed restricted for moderate income housing. That was my idea. My concern is the more we build out west and add on additional costs, the more the Home Builders Association is gonna get up in arms about what we're asking for. I'm a little concerned about legislation going through because of some of these costs. And so I just wanted to make sure that if they're really trying to target affordability, that we're trying to help them target affordability. Part of me thinks the Home Builders Association just wants to be able to build cheaper altogether so that they save a little bit. And so I just wanted to make sure we took the wind out of the sails of the argument that we're making things too expensive by saying, well, these additional costs will waive if it is truly moderate income housing.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
You want to talk about the,
Yeah, a couple of things. Make this very brief. I don't know how many of you had a chance to go to that subdivision. I did speak to Rick there before. Gary, and he was there about a month and a half ago. Wade and I, my brother Yuri, we're very proud of the subdivision that we've done. These things last a lifetime, meaning at least, 50, 70, 100 years. So you've got to do it right. And I think we have done it right. If you go through there now, over 50% of the land has been either started or built on. And you've got a great variety of homes. You've got homes from 2,000 square feet to 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. If you drive through there, it looks great. The water problem that was there, that area of phase 1 was a dumping ground of water. They told us back with Chad that this area could have been a swamp. And I said, there's no way you can have a swamp in the upper desert. Since that time, we found out that neighbours have been dumping water on that lot. We've had a ton of water that we've diverted because of that area. So we've turned it into good land that doesn't have any water dumped on it. If you look at phase 2 now, and even the last winter, and Gary mentioned that too, there's a lot of water. Your concern was there's a lot of water in that phase 2. It doesn't look good on vacant land. I agree, but we've got the solution. As you know, the solution is to develop it. If we put phase 2 in there with the low cost housing, all that land is being built up at the moment as we speak. There's a ton of soil. It's going to come up about 3 feet. But the key thing is not just the elevation of the land. The key thing is that all the roads that pass through there in phase 2 are all going to be drained. All those roads will pick up the water and it'll go across to that detention pond. So all that water will totally disappear. You won't see any water there at all. It'll all be gone because it'll be controlled by the drainage system developed through phase 1 and phase 2. At the moment, we have phase 1, which most of it's okay, except for the park area, and phase 2 has got the water sitting on there. So, it makes sense from your perspective, all our perspective, is to try to get that developed and get that drained. I have got a problem that we've been dealing with since Charlie mentioned this. He said, well, we want you to go back. Here's a copy of the plan. You got one. Okay, but I've marked the street there as well. We want you to go back and we want you to get access to the side on the other street, to the neighbour.
to the west.
Yeah, and we said, well,
You're talking about it here.
Yeah.
correct. We said we're going to try. I don't know whether you
So
read,
who requested that?
Charlie.
Okay.
The horse has bolted. We sold the land 2 years ago. You guys approved it. We recorded everything and we sold every lot. We have got 2 lots there that we've been negotiating, but these people now want to charge an exorbitant amount of money. There's a lot of issues with it. We can't make it happen. I can't do this subdivision without the patio homes to make it worthwhile from a commercial sense, because I showed you the costings last time. It was over 5 million to subdivide 30 lots. Here now we've got 27 and we've got 24 patio homes. We can't gain access to somebody else's property. What's everybody thinking about? This is not right. You know, how can we buy a property? Well, they don't want to sell it. They built it, they bought it to develop it. And they've developed most of that street except for those 2 lots together. To ask us to do that is legally impossible. It's preposterous. I mean, how can you sit here and ask us to acquire somebody else's land to gain access? What are you going to need that access? You ask me when that parcel of land of 20 acres is going to be used. Nobody here knows. It may not be in our lifetime. Could be 20, 30 years, because we've spoken to those people. They got no plans at the moment because of the problem with the fees that they've got, the same as we're talking to you about. So I think it's ridiculous to ask us as a developer to try to do anything we want for you. We can't do that. Don't twist our arms up here to do things that are impossible and not practical. We don't own the land. And to negotiate as a third party for the people to do, they're getting out of hand what they want for the land. Then I heard that they wanted not just a pathway, they wanted a road. Well, you'd have to acquire at least 1 lot, if not 2. At what price? We don't know. They don't want to sell. So we got a real problem there.
This is recorded.
Mm.
You sold the lots,
Yes,
so the horse is out of the barn.
correct. 2 years
To
ago.
use your,
Common sense.
but I don't think the commission asked you for that.
Yes, I did.
That was
Commissioner
Harvey.
Harvey said he
Wanted the
wants a
road.
road there.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, that stretches it too far.
Okay.
My opinion. So Charlie, in the future, that should be addressed before they have a final plat, before they sell it.
Absolutely.
When it comes before us, for approval, if you want a road in, that's the time to put it in, has to be put in,
Mhm.
not after.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a couple of state codes that violates right off the top. And, not that we can't ask for it, but it's what my opinion is, that stretches it too far.
Well, we've tried.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Charlie, this southern border, is that planned to be road here on 2000? To connect to 2000 over here?
No, I don't think so. We haven't planned that to be a road, yet there. We do think that the neighboring property to the south might do their own thing. They've got a stub in from on the south side of the property that goes north. Yeah, so we think that the road that comes through phase 1 that's already there,
Right here.
goes down to the south. We think that'll curve down and probably stub in on the south side of his corner piece. But I think it's gonna be a little hard to get a road to go,
West?
Yep.
Or west here?
I think, so if you look at Shell Grove, is it Shell Grove or?
Commissioners, the recording is on mute. Do you mind unmuting? Thank you.
We were
I
muted.
think that was Christie just.
we were.
It hasn't been muted the whole time.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Do
know.
we need to start over? Just kidding. So, as far as the development agreement goes, I mean, I think Commissioner Harvey might be a little bit of the wild card on this, because he was asking for a little bit more, I think. The development agreement does talk about, that pathway. So 9.6.2.4, phase 1 pathway right of way.
Well, where's the pathway right around East Platte?
That's this,
Oh,
the path, it's a pedestrian path that Commissioner Harvey was asking to be a road.
but those are already sold.
Yeah, correct.
So when,
Yeah.
where the patio homes are located now, there was a small pocket park that was proposed there. In the original draft of the development agreement, I had said, let's give you some incentive to work with that landowner and get a pathway connection over there. And if you can get that pathway connection, then the park can go away, or some provision or some amenities in that park can go away. And so they started working with the landowner to try and acquire that right of way. From then on, we just assumed that was gonna be possible. And that's where the park that was in the subdivision came out and the patio homes went in exchange for essentially that western connection. And that western connection, by the way, is connecting to the Taylor Landing. It's currently Taylor Landing open space, but you guys had a conversation with Heritage last week on Monday, 2 weeks ago Monday, whenever it was. Essentially, they're looking to make a development there if they can get it. And I think they've taken care of a lot of the concerns that you guys had. They'll be back to have a conversation with you about it.
Okay,
And we've been in talks with the landowner there, you know, in terms of the pedestrian. I mean, they're still a bit up the air. When I talked to the guy last time, he says he's got to talk to a Mike Schultz. He says he's the one that owns the lots
Schultz owns them?
through Castle Creek. But this Mike Bastion I was been working with, says, look, I gotta talk to Mike. And, because we still, you know, it's, in other words, it is still a little bit up in the air. And,
This pedestrian access,
Pedestrian.
so
Essentially,
that's not even guaranteed.
Correct.
if it could be, they'd be taking 6 feet from either property and donating it to the county, so you get a total of 12 with it. And then we'll have Heritage build the 10-foot asphalt pathway in there when they make the connection into their development. Hindsight's definitely 20/20 on this, and I feel for the applicants here because phase one was developed under the A1 cluster subdivision code. The property to the west was supposed to be permanently held in open space, and they're asking for that to go away, just like this open space not to go away. And so now we're looking at all these.
scenarios, this transitional type of things. I mean, we want to do what we can, to make it, the connectivity strong, right?
Yeah, and part of the conversation from the beginning was if we could just take the PRUD, make it go away, go back to square one, pretending like phase one never happened, how would we then address this? And to me, the only two things that I think we would have done differently is the cul-de-sac that you see in phase one would have gone away. That would have made it through connection.
This one,
Uh-huh. And then
Yes, that one there.
that one, and then Shell Grove would have made a connection to the west, but that's the only two things I think we would have done different if we can rewind 5 years ago. Where phase one is already done, I do think it's a little bit of a hard ask for a road to go through. I still think it's reasonable, and hopefully they can work with Castle Creek and Mike Schultz to get a pathway through. I think that's a pretty good compromise in my opinion.
any other questions?
Yeah, to me, it's kind of a stretch to go back on any recorded plat at this point in time. I mean, I guess, I would encourage you to do what you could for the pathway, but, especially dealing with Schultz, it would be pretty easy to see some legislation come out next year that
Say you can't do this.
they said you can't do it, so I'd be real careful with that.
Yeah.
If you look at the phase one pathway right away, provision in the agreement, 9.6.2.4, bottom of page 9. It talks about a connection through any one of lots 105 through 112, so it gives a range of, what is that, seven?
And when we looked at that, Charlie, you know, Igor and I went out and just marked the ones that were the houses that were being built on.
Mhm.
And the one that we talked about, because there's actually 2 lots together, that we thought that was the best area.
Best
Two
solution.
lots
Plus-
together that haven't been
Yeah,
started.
yeah. Plus we
Yeah.
thought, hey, this is really nice because it could go and connect into the sidewalk.
Yep.
That wasn't like away from a road, you know, it was a natural
Mhm.
pedestrian way. So we thought, hey, this could be really good. But, they're just the unknowns.
Mhm.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
I have just a couple questions. I
Okay.
know we're way past time, but, general plan amendment, tell me how this deviates from the general plan.
So the general plan, because this was a PRUD cluster subdivision in the beginning, the portion that they're proposing to build on right now, we're showing the general plan as open space. Because we did that with all of the PRUDs or the cluster subdivisions, just showed the open space on the plan. They're hoping to replace that with buildable area in exchange for buying out essentially open space for the parks. And that's why I
With the
think,
donation.
yeah, the donation, that's why I think the trail connection to the west, I think is a really great asset, because that will, if you see how this works, that'll connect all of Winston Park all of Taylor Landing over to the Taylor West Weaver Park over here, if they do get that full 30-acre park. But also, if you look on the proposed plan, there's a pathway at the end of Shell Grove Road on the east side that connects into the neighboring property to the east. So theoretically, you could get a pathway running from 3500 west all the way to the park through several neighborhoods without ever getting onto 1800 or 2200 south, which could be collector streets in the future.
Okay.
To me, that was pretty good recreational donation, even though it's not technically money in the bank for the park district. It's,
Right,
I think it's a good connection for the community.
okay. This is where I am. And we had this conversation 2 weeks ago with the other piece over here. And that is that the density, it sounds like the density has been. What's the word?
Exhausted.
Exhausted.
Well,
From-
we're still a little bit under, you know,
Okay.
because I think it was 116
Okay.
and we're at
101.
105.
Okay,
I think Commissioner Bolos is talking about the
Oh.
density from phase one under the
Oh.
A1 zone.
oh yeah, and you know
Gotcha.
how I feel about that.
Mhm.
So I really want you, Charlie, and maybe a couple of you or one of you to talk to Commissioner Harvey about it. I'm really undecided because I appreciate the increase over the donations you made in phase one. It's getting there for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Because for me to approve additional density after it's already been almost exhausted. I have to see that give back, and I see that you've increased from what, you know, your expectation was before we changed that.
Mhm.
Park District changed that, so. I'm still in the middle, that's why I'm asking you to talk to Commissioner Harvey about it
Okay.
and get his take on it, or he's not here today to give his opinion.
We tried to talk to him on Friday,
Yeah.
but the gal said he doesn't do appointments on Friday.
He's out of town, so he'll be
Yeah.
back, I think, he's back in the office this Friday, I think,
Okay,
so.
so when does he come back? Friday or?
I think he comes back Thursday.
How does he? Okay,
So, yeah, I would just check with the gals out, see,
Okay.
they should know what his schedule is.
or maybe the following Monday, huh?
Yeah, I would say.
Or Tuesday.
I think he'll be back later this week. Check with him and see.
Okay.
I'm not saying a hard no. I just, you know where I am. This is where I was 2 weeks ago on the other piece.
Yeah.
It has to be a big trade-off for me.
Yeah.
For additional density. So,
That makes sense.
So otherwise what happens? We just leave it the way it is? Okay.
Well, so there isn't a formal no yet, and so I think we've talked to Harvey. And as Commissioner Bolos thinks about it over the next week or two, then we go back to the county commission in a formal meeting and take it off the table, because it was just tabled. Take it off the table and have you make a final decision one way or the other.
I mean, we've been dealing with this for 9 months.
Mhm.
We've been led to believe we can do this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have pursued it. Why would we pursue it? Wasting everybody's time here. You know, so since August, when we were told to meet with the Parks Department, every meeting we've been to, which includes the work and the formal meetings, yeah, it's all been positive. Yeah, we want to change that land from a swamp is really what it is to housing. I mean, I just can't understand how.
I'm not disagreeing with you. My hangup is with the additional density, and I need to have a trade-off that I feel is fair for that.
And that's where
So,
we're
I
trying to, we are trying to strike that balance. we
I
really
know,
are.
and that's what I mean, I appreciate the increase in the donation, and that's why I want you to talk to Commissioner Harvey, because if he's there, then you've got it.
Yeah, but what about you?
We want you happy.
Yeah.
I know,
Exactly.
I know. I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way.
What's it gonna take to get?
I don't
to there?
know. I don't know that. I wish I had the answer today.
What about yourself?
Well, I have a lot of the same feelings as Commissioner Bolos, is that to take open space that was given rights when that thing was done under previous ordinance, and now, I've always been the death on, okay, this ground was promised to be
Yeah.
open space. Now, and the deal was based upon that. Again, we talk about going back to previous recorded, that was a recorded
Right.
document, with that was to remain open space.
Mhm.
Now, the world's changed since that happened. We know now the housing is critical. And I think we need to do our part to do affordable housing, to
Yeah.
provide
Yeah.
a product out there that makes sense for our kids and grandkids. I just learned this morning from the state that we were at 35,000 underserved units. It dropped to 25 sometime probably earlier in the year. Now we're back up with the growth. The forecast now is we're 50,000 units underwater. So I think I don't think, I'm prepared to stand on, hey, that was supposed to be open space.
Yeah.
But there has to be, okay, what does the public get out of that? And if you could say, hey, we'll have some kids and grandkids
Mhm.
be able to have attainable housing by doing this. With provisions that it's gonna be a development that Weber County can be proud of, then, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, on
But there's gotta be a good,
Yeah,
I'm the same, there's gotta be a trade-off, but I don't think, again, my position is if we continue to say, look, this is a piece of ground that was dedicated, we're not gonna let housing there, when probably the best use of some of this ground on our poor ground is
House
housing.
housing.
We're missing the boat by,
Mm.
we're standing on principles
Right.
that in my mind won't benefit the public.
Well, and I think in that area, if you look around, you're not gonna see anything at a low cost housing. There is a stagecoach subdivision across the road, but they're not gonna be putting in 1,000 or 1,300 square foot.
Right,
Right,
Patio
no,
homes.
that's
And that came from your Commissioner Harvey,
right. Well, that's,
and we've acted upon that. I mean,
so that's a benefit.
Yeah.
That's a contribution that I can,
and the deed restrictions
That I
are a
can-
contribution.
That they're on those.
that I can say, hey, this is open space. This is why it makes sense for us to benefit the public away from what was promised to them in the past.
Yeah.
That's,
okay,
And Commissioner Ford, I recognize that, these, we're given this open space to develop because of, and
Right.
we did it on the basis of that.
right.
But wait, I don't know if this is appropriate comment, but the county did change, the county did change their
the zoning.
zoning, right?
No,
The amendment, so it did give us an opportunity. We
No.
appreciate that.
And
We're grateful for that.
I get that, but part of that is the zone is in certain
That's true.
provisions to meet that zone requirement for the R115.
Right,
So
okay,
just because it's zoned that
right.
doesn't necessarily mean you still have to come in and go through the development process.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's where we've hoped that we've been able to
Yeah.
do with planning, we up to this point, but
Right.
anyways, yeah.
Well,
Thank you. Points well taken, though.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a big group coming in. So Chris, you made it back from
I did
quite a road trip, wasn't it?
the craziest thunderstorms.
Oh, well,
Did you have lightning?
well, did you see that Monticello
Yeah,
had major, thanks, guys,
Thank you. Thank you.
And
major flooding?
yeah, and then that road that we were by Mexican Hat got washed out.
Oh, did it
Yeah.
get washed out?
Yeah, the day after.
Did it?
Mhm. So I thought I was gonna start hydroplaning, like I couldn't see the roads when I was driving, they were that bad, so. But yeah, I made it back and it was fun. to drive, so.
Did you?
Long-
Yeah.
Yeah, did you all come back immediately?
For Kentucky, are you guys, is the conference at the hotel or somewhere else?
No, it's
Yeah.
the conference is at the hotel, isn't it, Chris?
Chris, for Kentucky, is the conference at the hotel?
You need the name of the hotel?
No, I've got it. It's the Sealback Hilton. Or no. That's in our state.
I'll check.
I'm assuming it's probably.
Unless you would give me.
Oh, okay.
I'm the Michael.
That are maybe a thousand.
You have it, but thanks.
I'll find out.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the Sealback.
Perfect.
Was my. And so if they want.
We're gonna go to.
I'm starting building. But they say they're gonna start it. I didn't find my.
Reinsurance will cover.
They didn't tell me that I don't
Are you guys staying at that same hotel?
We are, so, Daniel wants our schedule, that have two benefit for us.
Pay for it.
So we do.
No.
Daniel,
How are you?
It's gonna be
Okay,
really
good.
great.
Sorry, everyone, we're just a little bit behind. Well, we're a lot behind.
lot behind, my fault.
Not your fault, the meeting you were at.
Commissioners,
Yes.
the closed session today
Mhm.
has been canceled.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
hey,
Now you're on time.
Well, not, we will be at 10:45.
we just made up 15 minutes at some point.
Nice.
Okay. Our 1 o'clock item, discussion regarding paramedic licensing, Eli Johnson, Scott Park, Ryan Barron, Lisa Schwartz. Gosline, Britt Clark, Paul Sullivan, I don't see Chief Sullivan here.
It's a cost.
Mike Matthew, Mike Slater, I don't see him here either.
He's Mike's at another meeting.
Bob Gross, Aaron Williams, Jason Horn. Okay, Eli. Yeah.
So real quickly, agenda today, involves the countywide paramedic, program. We have become aware Northview Fire District, is in the process of preparing an application to establish their own paramedic program. From reading the material, I believe I emailed all of you, in reading their, draft application, it appears that their intent is to start a paramedic program outside of the current established, county program. This has some financial implications, it has some legal implications that we'd like to speak to, just kind of give you guys an idea. And then I think the ultimate question, at the end of this meeting, or when you guys come to a decision, is the county going to support this application from Northview Fire District or not support it, or modify its support based on the idea that Northview come into the fold and participate as part of the established program. Before we get into a lot of those kind of nuts and bolts of it, Dr. Grove, who is the supervising medical physician for the paramedic program, is online. He has another meeting. So I'd just like to open the table to Dr. Grove so he can give his input as far as his concerns with medical outcomes based on a division of the paramedic program as it currently is. So if we can just let Dr. Grove speak, I think that would be great.
That would be great. Dr. Grow?
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I'm actually out of town, but from our previous meetings where we've had conversations about the paramedic program, I think the consensus has always been that the program functions well. Of course, we just, with the study that we've had, which I think clearly demonstrated that, it showed where our soft points are that we need to work on over the next few years and be planning for, but certainly didn't highlight any imminent shortfalls or pitfalls in the current program that would need immediate change. I think Northview understands that going within the framework of the paramedic program as established is probably not a real viable option for them, and that's why they're pushing to do this outside of what's currently established. And just so everybody in the room is aware, I was the medical director separately for Northview outside of being the program director for the paramedic program. That relationship was for a couple of years and terminated about a year ago, in part because we didn't really see eye to eye very much on this issue. And I think there was, I kind of felt like I'd been brought on under some false pretenses, but anyway, I do have that background with Northview, so I've been inside their department and their program pretty thoroughly over the past few years, and from a very high level, just don't think they're well prepared or well established to pursue an independent paramedic program at this point in time. I will give them credit. I found their application somewhat persuasive. I think their plan clearly shows some good thinking that's gone on in their department and good planning, but outside of the sort of financial and legal implications, which there are some that I think need to be talked about just from a medical perspective. I don't think the county needs this. So that's kind of my initial gestalt on where things are.
Thank you, Dr. Groh. Did you want to speak to any of those financial or legal implications, or will there be others who do that?
I think there are others. I think it's sort of outside my purview. I do the medical side of things. I think the only thing I'll add is that at the state level, when Northview makes this application, I think Chief Matthew can speak to this probably better than I can. The burden really is on them to demonstrate to the state that we're not meeting the needs of our community in terms of providing adequate medical care. That is a very high bar for them to push us over, I think. So I think we are very well respected by the state. I think our program is well regarded and well run. So I think the onus for them to make this happen without our support is very, very high. I don't know how much they recognize that this is a very high hurdle for them to get over. So hopefully we can count on the commission support to continue the program. And, if there's ways to incorporate what Northview wants to do in a way that's within what we currently have established, I think there's clearly some willingness to do that on our part. But I think conceding our paramedic license to them is not really what I would like to see happen.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I guess I'll kind of turn over the nuts and bolts and stuff to the folks who've looked into it. I know Brian has looked into the legal applications or implications, and Scott has kind of looked at some of the taxation issues, and then I'll let Chief Matthew, Chief Clark, and Cody, if he decides to chime in, kind of speak to as far as delivery of services and their concerns with Northview's application. So Brian, if you would like to start on the legal side of things on what our options are.
Sure. Yeah, just by way of background, the state regulates the provision of paramedic services. And they've carved up the state into different areas, and they provide a license to providers to provide paramedic services within that area. And they're exclusive licenses, so you can only have one provider in an area. And right now, the county has the license to provide paramedic services within our county. We've got contracts with Roy and Ogden and Weber Fire District to provide those paramedic services. And so Northview Fire District is thinking about submitting this application and trying to take that license away from us. And I've looked into that process of contesting their application at a state level, but I don't even think we need to get to that right off the bat. I think that we start with the Special Service District Code, not the Special Service District Code, the Special District Code. And in there's a restriction that says that if a district wants to provide a service they're not already providing, that's being provided by another government entity, they have to get permission from the government entities from the government entity that is providing that service, and that permission has to be granted in writing. They haven't asked us for permission, we haven't given that permission, so I don't think they even have authority to provide paramedic services at this point.
On their own.
If we decide we want to make them part of what we're doing, to improve services up in the north, then certainly we could enter into an interlocal agreement with them. We could apply for a license jointly with them, and we could incorporate them into what we're already doing. I think that there is some interest in doing that. Any questions from me about?
I don't think so. I don't have any, Commissioner Farrell.
Well, I guess the underlying, why are they asking for this all of a sudden? I mean, we did that study, what, a year ago? The study came out, my memory, correct me if I'm wrong, it said, hey, this thing's being run the best way that I've seen any of these districts be run for paramedic service. I'm just confused what do they hope to gain, or what's their motivation? Do you know, Chief?
I think some of it is they have to rely on paramedics from Ogden or Weber Fire to come and assist with them. And they just want to have total control of it and do it themselves. And irrespective to this study, I think that's just where they want to go, because they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They just don't want to use this current system anymore. I offered to Chris, I met with him a week and a half ago, and said to him that, would you work within the current system? And
Yeah.
here's part of my concerns in the whole thing. It's not about financial concern. It's one of a medical quality and delivery of service issue. Is we're still developing Rescue 31, the one truck that Weber Fire is operating out in the northwest part of the county, and there's no disrespect to any personnel or anything like that. It's a matter of exposure and experience. And experienced medical practitioners are better at what they do. A simple fact, no matter what you do, whether it's emergency medical service, dermatology, if you do it a lot, see a lot, you become better because you're more experienced. And we would hate to see the quality of that paramedic service delivery decline because of exposure, of experience, of much less experience. I think that's one of the things Dr. Grohl mentioned, and hopefully chimes in on this, is that you can't replace experience with just training. You can't watch videos, you can't get a mannequin out and create experience. So if they were to do this on their own, that means less exposure for Rescue 61 out of Weber Fire District. Do we need a contract, or do we have more capacity? And one of his proponent or proposal proponents is that we'd have more capacity to serve other needs of the county, but it's not strategically created to meet the demands where we've already strategically created the program. And so that the weakness in our delivery of service is the most northern portion of North Ogden, Pleasant View. That's where our response times are the poorest, but it's also the lowest amount of call volume. It's out in the fringe areas, just like out in West Weber, in the Hooper and the Canesville, West Haven area, way out west. But if you look at it, even our study, they took a 5-year sample of the call volume. When you chop it down to 1 year, you say, geez, there's just not that many calls out there to justify having a completely staffed unit. So one of the things I talked to Chris about, as I said, one of the things in the study that Stu Gary mentioned is, he said, maybe you run a one-person medical response unit out of like Northview Stations 22 with one medic. And you still run a rescue truck from either Weber or from Ogden out there, but you have that initial response of that medic that's being there. Well, if it's part of the program and that person rotates onto our busier trucks or onto a Weber truck and we get more experience, then it's still, the continuity of the program is there, and it's all still a solidified singular program. And we would much prefer, I think, an approach like that, addressing the north end of North Ogden like that and the West Weber area like that, because you're never going to really have significant call volume. It's going to be predominantly residential area in the northern part. They're going to be up next to the mountain. There's nowhere more to go. So to say that they're just going to see more growth in that area, that's not the case. They might see more growth in density areas of talking proper, which 61 and our Rescue 3 will get there in time. But it's not them doing it. It's us doing it. And I would much rather see some cooperative effort with us and the Northview Fire Department, where maybe they have one unit, one medic roving unit out there. We pilot it, and we have it as a requirement that medic rotates onto our truck, so they have that experience and they get that exposure. And the same thing we can do with the Weaver unit in terms of whether they rotate onto that unit or rotate to the Roy unit. But I think that kind of proposal just works so much better in meeting these fringe areas of the community that are not being met satisfactorily today. Instead of just saying, we're just going to take this whole area over, you guys just leave. And we think it's better for the program and patient delivery. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with quality of delivery of paramedic services to the patients. And you need experience to be good at what you're doing. And we believe we have a program that does that because it's regionalized. No different than our 911 center. We don't have 3 911 centers anymore. We have 1. And it's top notch because it handles a lot of call volume. People get good at it. I don't know, Dr. Grover, did you want to comment anything about that?
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Like I said, I think there's a lot of value in maintaining our current structure and trying to work with Northview to integrate what they're hoping to accomplish. I think there are strategic ways to do that, as Chief Matthew has pointed out, in terms of helping them build some paramedic response into their current structure, but still within the overarching structure of the county program. And I agree. I mean, I think for all of us at this table, the financial concerns are sort of a secondary thing. It really comes down to providing the best service to our citizens. And the call volume, as the guys in the field call it, the sets and reps of going on these calls, interacting with people is critical to maintaining skills and proficiency. And the more we cut that down, the less in each individual paramedic has a chance to maintain their skills. And, one of the arguments in Northview's proposal is that we are understaffed in terms of paramedics per population ratio. And that's true within the state of Utah. We do run a pretty lean paramedic program, but it's intentionally done that way because our AEMTs are very capable, who are generally our first response to most scenes. But in comparison to what happens nationally, especially at very well-established programs, for example, if you take Medic One's program in Seattle, who is probably one of the top EMS providers in the country, they run very lean, just like us. Their medic to population ratio is very, very low, or excuse me, very high. So the introduction of more medics into the county doesn't necessarily ensure better quality of care to our citizens. Our response times might be 1-2 minutes faster in some of our very fringe areas, but those people showing up are far less experienced and not having the same sets and reps as our busier medic trucks.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. Maybe these are for you, Chief, and maybe Dr. Grow. I'm looking at the application. If you have it in front of you, it's page 4 where they spell out the problems. So I just want to ask about your input on some of these. I think you spoke to number 1, Chief. They have paramedic firefighters employed. You see where I am?
Which.
It's under the problem.
Okay, yeah.
Number 1, despite having the paramedic firefighters, they can't provide that level of treatment on scene. And I think you spoke to that with the rotation of getting those
That's why
those
we.
firefighters experience.
Right, if they were gonna do field paramedic care, we did this in the Upper Valley a number of years ago because of low call volume up there, so we rotated experienced paramedics up there and then lesser experienced down below, so they could maintain a balance in that.
Okay, so number 2, the way I read that is that if they do have an AMT on scene, they can't assist a patient unless someone else arrives.
No, they can, it's called the level of care, scope of care that they're trained to. All intermediate EMTs, and if you look at our analysis from Stu Gary, they can do quite a bit of medication therapy and a lot of other treatment while paramedics are still responding. There's only a handful of medications and a handful of techniques that they cannot perform. And they're even in our system as a whole, they're infrequently used. And so we need to ration those to we need to make sure that people that are doing them do them as often as possible. And so that would be even more infrequent. They would be doing paramedic skill and paramedic medication only administration,
Right.
which would be really low.
So the way that I'm reading this, it sounds like they can't actually treat on scene. They have to wait for someone. That's not okay. That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know. And then number 3 said that our program consistently fails to meet the response time expectations.
That's where he's talking about. And one of the things he
I know he's talking about, well, you guys are talking about the fringes, but consistently fails just makes it sound like
right, like
happening all the time.
we're miserable. And I'll give you something that's a little misleading in his presentation on this page. It's 2 more pages later. He uses a map from, these are taken from the paramedic study. And it's
From the study that we had done.
Yeah, but they don't align. Because this is the 8-minute travel time, which is the time from when we go in route to the time we arrive. This table down below references from the time of call to a time arrival, which the standard there is 11 minutes. So he's taken the fringe areas and shown the 13-14 minutes and the number of calls. And for example, Eli, I think he looked up the 2 calls in one of the Northview areas, and they were over on the other side of the divide, the east side of the divide. So looking to make it look like it's much worse than what it really is.
Why were they on the east side?
Because like the ambulance up there was busy, and so our medic.
I think it was a flyer in the study, because due to the call volume of the paramedics up in the Upper Valley, We've restricted the stats from there because it would have thrown the study off as far as the overall program. So in looking at the calls, and I haven't looked specifically into them, but there were the 2 calls, both of them on the heat map show just on the Eden side of North Ogden Divide. So the assumption, in speaking with Chief Slater about it, is the rescue in the Upper Valley was busy. And Rescue 3 had to respond over the divide for, I'm assuming, a traffic accident is what those 2
Which
calls
would be
were.
Weaver Fire's area, not Northview's.
Exactly, but would have been excluded from the Weaver Fire section of the study because it was that Upper Valley area. So the assumption is it was a Rescue 3 response because 62 was occupied on another call and couldn't respond.
Commissioner Bowles.
Yes.
In terms of what you read also, and or Dr. Groves saying the comparison of other entities. Well, much of the rest of the state, they create paramedic programs based on their political boundaries. So as an example, when Davis County Sheriff decided to get out of the paramedic service, they were serving when the county was much less populated, didn't have as many bigger cities. The county sheriff provided paramedic service throughout the county. And then as some of the cities grew up, they started to take it on. And then eventually they said, we just want to transfer it all to the fire departments. And they probably grew by about 3 times the number of paramedic units in Davis County now, because each fire department wanted 1 or 2 or whatever they wanted to do, how they were going to do it. So going to the issue of comparing us to other communities is really apples to oranges because of the methodology of delivery of service. But more importantly, the answers to overutilization of our units, Stu Gary addressed it. And that's what they call this unit hour utilization rate. And they said that Rescue 1, the unit downtown, should be watched because we're running at about 22 to 24% unit hour utilization. What that means, it's about a call every 3 hours. And when they get to up to 0.3 or 30%, you should look at taking them out of service or adding. So this analysis is what we should be using as the data-driven document to say, this is when we need to add units. That's from a sheer volume standpoint. What they're approaching is a response time standard without regard to any volume. And so that's when he addressed it in the study when he said, maybe you want to put some kind of resource, not a complete unit, but some kind of resource in those outlying areas, because then you can address the fringe areas and deal with the low call volume areas. But they shouldn't be done as an island, because then they'll have very low call volume. They should be done, in my opinion, rotated with the busier units, because it gives the breaks to the busy medics and it gives a experienced medic to the slow call volume areas.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you already addressed the other questions I had in there, so. You have any other questions before we go to the financial
No,
part of it?
no, I think I,
Oh,
Can I say
yes,
something real quick?
Chief.
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything Chief Matthew said. It's really about the delivery service and the quality. But I also wanted to talk a little bit on the financial side. And Chris come and talked to me, and I told him fundamentally, I'm not opposed to medics in Northview's area, but I'm really opposed to doing something that hurts the program overall. And if they were to leave, it would automatically raise the price to all the citizens in the county, because you'd have all those that would leave it. And so to me, it would hurt the system. Another thing is on the study, we did a study and it come out and showed that we run a really good program. It does show we have some fringe areas, which is Northview's area, but most of them lie in my areas out west. And that's just the way it is. We don't get a lot of calls out there. People live a long ways away, but we are either meeting the standard or it was recommended on how we can meet that standard. And I think one of my biggest issues is we have a study that the ink on the check is barely even dry and we're looking to throw it out when the study's telling us how to provide the service and keep going. And it's telling us how to come up with plans to add units. Adding a medic in Northview's area wasn't an idea we came up with, it was in the study. And we're not opposed to that. We see that and we read the study and we accept it. We know what's gonna happen. And so I think for me, I would like to see the county back the study and stay with it and say, you know what, we paid all this money on a professional study, let's back it and run it through and get better. And that would be my position. That's what I told Chris, is I would back one that's good for the county as a whole. And I think staying with the study is good for the county as a whole.
One last thing on the response time piece is that response time standards are, first of all, it's not a law, it's not a regulation, it's a recommendation, accumulation of an industry experts. And within that standard, you have like a career department standard, and you have a volunteer, part-time or combination. And so one of the things even in student studies said that we either adopt, if we don't want to meet the urban standard requirement for response times, you can say, we'll just set our standard to be a little bit higher for these outlying areas. And you say, that's what we're gonna do because we're financially constrained. That's why we're gonna do this. And that's just what happens. Or we can try to implement some things to try to meet an urban standard in some of the outlying areas, which is very, I don't know, appreciative if that's done, especially for those less populated areas, but it can cost some money. Then it becomes political and financial for elected officials to consider.
And it was a contingency at the end of the study when we briefed this out with Stu last year. That idea that at some point we are gonna most likely have to add additional paramedic service to that northwest
Right.
portion of the county. But based on Stu's study, we were looking at about a 3 to 5 year timeline
Right.
to prepare to add for that additional service in that area with the growth out in Plain City. That we're seeing that's eventually gonna really start to wear on 61, heading out that way, but we knew it was coming. This application, basically, they're either going on their own or forcing us to advance that clock by 3 to 5 years on what we knew was gonna happen.
Mr. Park,
So just, I have more questions than I have answers. So the question, they're claiming, the study that they will do it all on their own, that they don't need any money from the county. They'll just fund it internally. Then we're double taxing those citizens for that same service. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
legally if we can even do that, or if they're going to expect us to then carve out the Northview districts.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then if they do that, then our remaining paramedic program is now underfunded, and so we'd have to raise taxes on everybody else, depending on the answer to that question. Or do we then get away with double taxing the citizens in the Northview Fire District and using that tax revenue to supplement everybody else in the county, which really wouldn't be fair.
Well, that
even
wouldn't
if it was
last long
legal.
under state code,
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
There may be a statute though that speaks to that. I just sent that down to you. That statute about possible double taxation.
Yeah.
So we'll have to look at that.
yeah, so but that's the question is one, can we legally double tax? But even if we can legally double tax, is that the right decision to make? Even if it's legal, is it the right decision to make? And then what does that mean for the rest of the paramedic units? Now we'll have to raise the taxes by at least, I mean, if you choose not to double tax, we're gonna have to raise everybody else's rate because they wanna go off and do their own.
Any questions?
Just a couple comments. So first off, we spent a lot of time analyzing, discussing that study, before the study, after the study. I don't see any reason that we don't follow the direction. My personal feeling is I've got full faith in that study. It says that we've got hotspots that we know about, will come about. We know that the 12th Street, the north, I'm gonna call it the northwest, that we've got provisions for a new station to go out there. On part of that new project that Stevens is putting together. There's a site already picked. I think, again, that's an opportunity to put, not a full unit, but, we could put one person or whatever you guys feel best to cover that. I don't see why we couldn't do the same thing out north. If they, and again, that's a fringe area. But the other thing I think that we key on that came out of that study, look, I learned a long time ago, you're gonna have somebody do work on you, as in surgery. You don't want a doc that's done 1 or 2 a week. You want a doc that's done 40 or 50 a week if you want the best. And I think that we're hurting the overall program by not giving the experience to those guys sitting in those guys and gals in the truck, so. And I don't see we got a flaw. I don't see we got a problem, personally. So that's where I'm at.
I think I'm there with you. Anyone else?
Then I guess the only remaining question is how do we proceed with Northview asking for support? Do we need to schedule a meeting with the chief of Northview and sit down and discuss our concerns?
So this
Moving
application
forward?
go to the state
It goes to the state.
It would
and they're
when they
asking for our
submit it.
support.
And basically, based on Brian's interpretation of the district law, they require our support in order to get that licensing.
Yeah, and I don't know that they know that because they haven't come to us asking for our support.
Like one of the conversations I had with the chief when he came and met with me, he says, I don't care about the finances. The politicians can figure that out. I thought it was, and to his credit, when you read the plan, it's a very effective strategic plan.
It is, yeah.
If you look at just myopically for their organization, what they want to do as a department, if they were standalone out there, not with regard to a current program, you'd say this is a very comprehensive and good plan. But it doesn't take in consideration any of the history, any of the legal standing, any of the fact that we're licensed in that area collectively. As a group, we've been doing this for over 40 years and we believe it's a very good, valid program. Like to keep it that way. We think it's the best way to deliver services. So I don't know what our options are other than to either oppose or.
Well, I think part of the opposition that we present to them is what you talked about, Chief, with the rotation and just try to meet some of the things they're trying to accomplish. I think that has to be part of the conversation, you know, so it's not just we're not supportive.
Right,
But rather, we see what you're trying to accomplish and we think we can do this by X, Y, and
collectively
Z,
working,
yeah.
and I mentioned that and you know. A little bit of it's a little bit like, I wasn't like negotiating, but I was just asking if they would be interested and he said, as long as it's in line with my strategic objectives. So still like, as long as I get to where I want to go, but maybe he doesn't know some of the legal ramifications, maybe he doesn't know.
Yeah, that all has to be part of the conversation, I think, and the tax implications too, it's a huge deal.
Significant issue.
So I don't know where we go from here.
Well, I know when we did this study, we were very, very consistent with all the information we were providing to Citygate, with all the input. Everybody had a seat at the table, every department in the county, and we did this as above board, as transparent as we possibly could. So I think that here in the next, few weeks, sitting down, scheduling a meeting with the chief of Northview or any of his district board members, and going over, our thoughts on this and just trying to be as above board and clear and front load this as much as possible. Let them know that this is not something that we're going to support and here are the reasons why.
I think that's a good idea,
I think it would
involving
be-
all the people who were at the table when the whole.
And I think it would be something to do prior to them submitting application to the state, as opposed to the state coming to us saying, do you support this? And us saying no, and then having to
So this
explain
is
to
their
them why.
application, but it hasn't been submitted.
My understanding is they have not
Okay.
Oh,
submitted.
they haven't given it.
I thought it had
Toes
been.
are being dipped in the water, it sounds like.
Oh,
So they
Okay.
met with us, to say, what do you guys think? You give
If
us
it's
your
been sent to the
feedback.
state, my opinion is, we wait for the state response before we try to supersede, because we know probably what they'll say, but.
Yeah, my understanding is they've completed the application, but it has not
Yeah.
been submitted. And
Yeah, if
the
they
chief's
submit
probably-
it, we would know within probably less than a week. They would email us and tell us that it had been submitted. So
Oh,
now I think
okay.
it's submitted.
I mean, I don't know, Commissioner Furley, maybe I disagree with you there. I think we ought to have the conversation before they submit it. We
Well,
might be
no,
able to meet their objectives
So what I'm saying, if they haven't submitted it, then I'm in favor of meeting
before, yeah,
if they submitted it,
then we just wait.
then we wait. I don't want,
Okay.
I don't wanna be looked upon the state as, hey, we're getting in their business, it's a state decision. If they haven't
But if
submitted
they
it,
haven't, then let's have
then,
that
yeah,
conversation.
absolutely,
Let's do that.
yeah.
Well, and I think some of these issues, I don't want to speak for Chris because I don't know, but just like the issue brought up by Brian, I don't think any of us knew for sure that it couldn't even get to the
Right.
point of being able to do that
Right.
without the support of the taxing entity today. And so then that becomes a political issue. And if you determine we're not going to support that, then is the issue dead regardless? And then we go back to work on objectives of achieving, joint interests.
Yeah.
And I would think once they understand kind of where the code sits, that they would be more willing to sit down and do negotiations. Okay, what can we do to, alleviate some of your concerns? But we can't go as far as what they're suggesting.
Well, and they were part of the conversation
They,
before
yeah,
during the study, right? So
yeah, they bought into it.
they're at the table.
And they've changed administration
Sure,
between when that study
Wow.
was issued and to this point.
I'm
Their
sure that's-
administration has changed. They've
Sure,
got a
that's part of
chief
the
and-
issue.
So, I mean, there may be some unknowns with Northview just on what was all involved, but yeah, just
Okay,
that.
that makes sense. Yeah, by all means, we could do it before.
And I think it would be helpful is if we had a legal opinion of
Yeah,
to
Sure,
present,
yep,
then it will be reviewed by their legal to determine is this correct and advise them whether they do or don't
Mhm.
need the support. Cause that will drive.
Yeah.
A big portion of this
Yeah.
issue.
For
Well,
sure.
can you pull that up, Brian? I mean, you've got code, we have to pull that up and
Yeah.
be prepared to talk
Do you want
about
me to put something together in advance of the meeting to send to them so that they can research it and come to the meeting knowing what the code is and
Probably.
having a position on it?
I think so.
that. Yeah, I mean, he sent this to us, right? So the problem, so
We got this from Eli.
oh, this came from.
Yeah, I got this from Chief Clark.
Oh, okay, all right, I got it.
I could draft a memo to Eli and then Eli
Yeah.
could share it with them.
I'd say, so it went to Eli, I
I
would
think
say,
so.
go through Eli back and
For
say,
sure.
you know, appreciate your memo here,
Yep.
but here's what the facts
Here's the
are.
response. Let's
Yeah.
have the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
I like that approach.
So who would be best to reach out to Chris? Me or one of you two or?
Doesn't really
And
matter.
one of
He's
us.
approached us both.
Did he, oh,
He
it
talked
went to
about
both of
Yes,
you?
I met with him a week and a half ago.
I
Okay.
met with him on Thursday.
Okay. Either one of you then.
We can share with them and say this, you may want to talk to your legal counsel about this, because we're being told that unless you have the county commission support. You're not allowed legally to apply, you know, to.
Yeah.
Even be able to become licensed to whatever.
Right. Okay.
I'm not gonna.
You meet with him Thursday?
I met with Chris last Thursday.
Oh, last Thursday.
Okay, let's start there. And I'll let you two decide who's gonna, if you wanna meet with them together, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Fair?
No, we're good.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Safe.
Get a sandwich if you don't have one.
Thanks, okay, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Talk so much.
I didn't need to say anything. I was really excited in Davis County when they got rid of the paramedic program, and then my
They're quite the place up there for tennis.
Yeah, we had a lot of people there, didn't we?
Yeah, you did. I got out just in time.
Did you?
Yeah. Yes,
Hope you got your taco though.
I did. That was really good food. Well, one of our friends, their daughter got married at the same time.
Oh, I
Dave
heard.
Wagstaff down in Ogden, so I had to,
So you did double duty.
yeah, try to get down to that before,
Good for you.
it's nice.
Well, Tim and Stacy, your family did a good job too.
All right, welcome everyone. We're on the agenda item 4, discussion regarding budget for evidence addition project. Bryce Taylor, Chief Aaron Perry, Captain Courtney Ryan, Bill Ross, Scott Park, Sheriff Ryan Arvin. That cover everybody?
Yeah.
And Jessica's here with us, so Bryce, you're the first one listed. Does that mean you're
Yep, I'll take it.
take it?
So this is a project been funded for a couple of years. Mezzanine was the first part of it. That's been bought and paid for. It's part of this total cost. And then there was another budget in 2023 to finish it. And we started off that budget, you know, trying to make sure we can get this finished and done, and we're running a little bit short. We need to finish it out. We're really close. We're just about ready to sheet rock. We've done all the electrical, fire suppression system, HVAC, all that's been put in. But what we've calculated, what we have left with our labor costs, we have some of the labor figured into there. We look at about 100,000 short. There's a little bit of that changing, a little bit of a moving target on that final number, with just a few unknowns. We have to hire an HVAC company to come finish because we don't have any HVAC guys on staff right now. So there's a couple added costs that have just come up lately. So we're looking at if we can get like 125,000 to finish this project. Part of the costs that come up that we started with, we did not have engineering. We didn't have any set drawings with the original cost of the money, the 250,000, and some things that came up with the costs that we didn't start off with. Engineering, that's what some of those, I don't know if you guys have this in front of them. This cost breakdown that Julie sent over. We did a fire sprinkling system in that we weren't planning on. We met with a consultant to give us some direction on this evidence project and his input on how to make it secure and some of those things. So there's just some costs that have come up, kind of weren't foreseen, and some costs of just increases from what it was. And so we're just coming to see if we can get some money to finish that.
I think it's,
Any questions, I guess, from the get-go? Sorry.
I
Derek,
think
for
it's,
the interview.
no, thank you, Bryce. I think it's worth noting that, so far that the work that's been happening is right, meticulous and proper, not just for today's needs, but we're gonna be, out decades. And,
Easy.
and if we expand, if the West and the Upper Valley continues to expand at the pace and they're still at the sheriff's office, we won't have to revisit this for at least a couple sheriffs or so. And I say that just because when you walk in there compared to what we have now, that we're probably on the fringe of busting the seams to what we're going to is, I think, gotta be close to 4 times what we have now, maybe 5.
I didn't realize it was that much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. So when we came in, we addressed this issue.
Oh, yeah.
And the right move was to go into the existing building where it was originally the warehouse for the sheriff's office. And I think we ended up with more space than we thought, which is good. And so and with the added security and the way it's set up, this is a good move. This is a good, solid move. So I just wanted to add that.
One thing to add too is the rolling evidence lockers that were currently in our evidence room weren't going to fit. They were too tall. And rather than just looking to purchase new ones of those, which were probably around $400,000, we were able to repurpose move some things around and use some other rolling lockers that we had for our records area that were a foot shorter, that were accommodate what we needed out there. So we have repurposed that and moved some things around to save that cost as well. So that was, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're as frugal as we can be with the budget and that. So.
Then if I could just add, I would just add that the consultant that we brought in was a consultant with the International Association of Property and Evidence. So our long-term goal is to seek accreditation of our evidence, kind of follow the example that Jill said. I think that was one of the best things that Chief Reese has done in his time there, was to seek that national accreditation. And it'll just help having an outside agency come in and make sure that we're meeting that standard. Some of those changes are changes recommended by him to make sure that we can meet that accreditation standard. And if I remember right, it was 20 plus years is what he projected that it'll last us for. 20, 30 years. Easy, and I just want to thank everybody involved in this. If you haven't been over and compared the old space to the new space, like this is. It's really good. Like this project will be really good in kind of cleaning up the history that we had. I think it really brings it full circle when we complete this. With the incident that we had, it'll show that we're looking at our processes, plus we're looking at our actual physical space and tackling the problem from all angles. So I just want to thank everybody, Bryce and his team and the commission and everybody up to this point for the support of this project.
Scott,
So originally, this project was below our capital projects threshold, and so we were funding it straight out of the sheriff's office budget. You just gave me, it wasn't that expensive. Now, I don't see that he has the room in his budget to fund the remaining 125,000. So we would either transfer 125,000 into his budget from our contingency fund, which we have 278,000 left in that. So that would take a good share of that. Or we could pull some money from capital projects, basically move this to the remaining amount of this to the capital projects fund, which has more money in it, but then, you're aware of all the lists of projects that are competing for those dollars. 125,000 isn't gonna break any one of those projects. That would be the easiest spot to get it from, because if we do it the other way, we're essentially zeroing out the contingency, which is not only used for sheriff capital projects, but also any other general fund item that we could come up with the rest of the year. We're only halfway through the year. So if you're amenable to this, I would say we fund it out of capital projects.
I don't disagree with that.
yeah, I agree with it too. Questions?
Yeah, so first off, I'd say, yeah, capital projects, so the 125, Bryce, are we pretty secure with that number?
Yeah, we sat down, did some numbers with our labor costs. This is calculating in our labor costs. We show about 103,000. There's some unknowns with existing accounts. So the 125 will get us to where we need to be to finish out the year. Will give us a little bit, on the back end in case we run into hiring vendors or anything to finish out that.
And if it's in capital projects, any money that's left over at the end stays in capital projects.
Right.
It wouldn't sweep over to the sheriff's office budget.
So that comes back, if it's 105, then
Yeah, the remaining.
20,000 comes back.
Well, it never stays in the capital projects.
Yeah.
It's
Get
just
spent
spent.
from there.
Yeah.
Gets spent from capital projects. So I do have one other question. So talking about processes. So Sheriff and I went through the initial stages with the old system and how many newspapers and TV newscasts we saw about how bad that was, people were in problem. So, but when we did the audit out there, which had been 4 years ago, a lot of the problems was not just on the physical, but on, okay, how are we managing the process? How are we working through the computer side of this, if you will? Do we have that under
Yeah.
control? Because I mean, you can have the best room in the house, but if you don't have control of what goes in and what comes out, doesn't matter if you got the best room, it's still broken.
So I can speak to that a little bit. I came into this project. I came into this project halfway through the construction project. And part of the reasons that we have some of these costs is, I don't know how else to say it any other way, but the individuals that are involved in this project prior, it was ordering cabinets for your kitchen without designing your kitchen first, right? Like we ordered this mezzanine, but we didn't have the layout of the entire room. So then we had to kind of backtrack. We had to do the architectural, we had to work backwards. And then we did have to do some change orders on some of that stuff that was already ordered. So we addressed that. The other thing that we did is I actually brought on, when I was at Roy, we had an individual over there that revamped their evidence. Over there, we brought him on originally as a temporary employee. He's now a permanent part-time employee that's helped us with processes. We're improving our purging, our purging of old evidence. And that was some of the feedback we got from our consultant was that, your new space will work, but if you don't come up with processes that also meet your new space, like you're gonna always outgrow. You'll never, if you don't come up with back-end processes to purge and maintain your evidence, you're never gonna have enough space. So yes, you can increase your space, but you've gotta improve your your processes as well. So those are things that we've tackled with, Ryan Reed's his name, lots of years of experience at Roy. I was very impressed with his time over there. He's come in and helped us with digital evidence and a lot of our evidence, establishing consistent procedures to start purging. We've noticed that we had a lot of unnecessary redundancies. Some redundancies are important, but you don't need 4, 5, 6 redundancies, if that makes sense, right? And so we've cleaned that up and we've cleaned the process up. So we are tackling it from both ends. Our physical space was insufficient. We didn't have the fire suppression. You know, this consultant, when he came in, he shared some case studies with us where, yeah, we had an incident of misuse that caused problems for our evidence. Other evidence units have had fires that have destroyed all of their evidence. So when you speak to those physical properties, he helped us understand what our current space was lacking, right? That protection that we had, you know, fire protection from those other things, but we are tackling it from both angles. And I do feel confident that we're headed in the right direction. That we've addressed both sides. We're not just making the container bigger, right? We're actually fixing the leak, stopping the leak, and then making sure the container is the right size.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a safety standpoint, we're doing ventilation, so we have 2 separate rooms.
Oh,
We have a gun processing room, a drug processing room, which is one. Then we actually have a decomposing room upstairs that's all ventilated, circulates. That was one of the things the consultant brought up was turnover error rate of some of those spaces and being able to ventilate, you know, opening a package of drugs and stuff. So then I know in the other space, you know, the odor of marijuana and stuff would get overwhelming. So ventilation was a big part of what we did to have the safety factor of
Refrigerated
that.
intake lockers, something that we didn't have before. So if you have an officer on a Friday night has a piece of evidence that needs to be refrigerated, our new evidence lockers will have refrigerated lockers that still have the same security, same accountability, if you will, but now they're refrigerated. And they can hold over the weekend till our evidence tech gets in on Monday and can process them. So
That's a lot of your sexual assault cases that
Mhm.
we see come up in the news quite often, the handling of those kits and things like that. So and also made adjustments to our personnel, where our personnel are at. That before, when the last issue happened, her office was inside of the evidence room. And this is separate, and there's a lot more oversight that way with key control and, you know, card access, things like that can monitor, and camera systems. And
that's great. Sounds like you made some great progress, so excited.
I want
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah.
Next time I'm over.
come over,
Come on in.
we'll take you for a tour.
Well, I agree with you, Commissioner Farrar, that it should come from capital projects.
Okay, I'll
But
put
that,
to it.
and you just have to follow that up with, it's less money for all the other things, and that involves your office as well. You know,
You know how it goes.
you were good at math,
Has to come out of somewhere, so.
pretty easy math.
I'll process the budget, changing KISS flow today with it coming out of capital projects. You'll see that in your email later today.
Okay.
Did the object and works change?
They will, but what I'll have you do is I'll just do a journal entry to move it on the back end because nobody has access to those accounts anyway, so.
Can we bring Commissioner Harvey up to speed, somebody,
I can, you want me to?
when he gets back into town?
Unless we want to meet with him, we can. Yeah. Any questions?
Just let him know.
Yeah. You can set up I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You guys are willing, by 3 o'clock to be done before.
Before the,
You have a
before the 2:30?
If you have one, yeah.
do it.
You got a 2:30, but.
Okay, I've been out of town for a while, got back, last week. Reese was here in my behalf.
Yeah.
Gave you a pretty good report. And I'm sure you recall that I asked him to give some really good numbers on situation in the jail. The medical mental is still an urgent need, and I know we're going through a process right now with the other project to see where priorities are and so forth. I asked him today, I said, if I go to commission, what kind of a number can I give him, just to give him a perspective of the medical mental health situation? And he was saying right now that we have about 60 beds that are being used for medical mental health, which is taking up 60 beds. So, you know, about a year ago, it was around 15 to 30. So that's just where we keep moving up.
Wow, double,
So,
huh?
yes, since then. So
Can he send us that every week?
we can get you an update.
I'm not gonna track it or anything, but I just think it would be nice to hear that every week.
Well, that's
So
the
we
thing,
just
right?
know kind of, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I agree, but you know, sometimes we don't wanna be that email that's, I
Then
know
just
what
send
that's
it to
gonna
me.
be, right?
And just send it to me.
Okay. Delete, delete,
I'm
delete.
just out of curiosity. I just wanna watch it fluctuate.
Okay. All right, and then lastly, to end on a really good note, Kyle Nordfors, I think you all know him. Search and rescue,
Yeah.
drone pilot.
Right, drone
He,
guy, right?
huh?
Drone,
Yeah, drone. He also flies for a major airline. He's a captain.
yeah.
He's leads our drones and search and rescue. He was just awarded search and rescue volunteer of the year
Nice.
for the state of Utah.
Hmm.
So that's one a year, and it is semi through the sheriffs, but there's a panel that's made up of volunteers and people who've been in search and rescue, so it's not a sheriff's decision. So we've got the plaque for 1 year, and I've asked Kristen and some of our staff to work with Jessica
Yeah.
to put this out. This is a big deal.
Can we
That's
talk
great.
about it in commission meeting too?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a
we ought to
big
do that
deal.
at commission meeting.
So,
For sure.
yeah, so
That's cool.
it's really cool.
Did I meet him in your office when the drone came flying in?
Yeah, that was him.
Okay.
Yeah, so. And then he'll also be recognized again at the sheriff's conference in September.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Good to know.
so anyway,
Great.
that's all I have.
Wow, that was quick.
Fast.
Still have 4 minutes.
Oh, no. Do you have anything for me?
I don't think
Questions,
so.
comments?
How'd your golf tournament go?
It was, you know what? What we see
There
with
you go.
our golf tournament is every year it fills up faster.
Yeah.
Last year, we had 11 too many, but this year, the
11?
thing was, you know, we're on the list. This year we had 3, but the difference was we didn't put it out to the public this year.
Oh,
Cause we just sent it out to our vendors and groups and it filled up in 3 weeks.
wow.
So we didn't send it out to the public because it was all full.
You don't need to if it
Yeah.
goes that quick.
Yeah,
Wow.
so every year it gets better and we just keep climbing and yeah,
That's
it was
cool.
really successful.
You did that in barn, huh?
Yeah.
Good.
So just a funny quick story. When I got past the primary sheriff
I think he's coming back, so.
I don't think we got Crockett on the agenda, do we?
He's not on there, but
No.
he hangs out to make sure we see. how the
3 o'clock,
progress
yeah.
goes.
Guess
All
can stay
right.
around without
I'll
having.
stick
We're
with
at 2:30, our discussion regarding sewer for 2200 South Single Tree Development, Byron White,
Me.
okay. Todd,
Todd Baird.
I know who you are,
Mike Long.
Mike Vaughn, okay. And you got Gary
I'm
Myers,
nervous, you
Chad
know who
Mayer.
I am. How do you know that?
Because our boys played football together. It's all good. Okay. Byron's on the agenda, but I don't know if he's taking it or you're taking it.
I think we can let Byron take it, just so you know, commissioners, we had set up another meeting with you for 3:30. And Christian informed me that we could move that up, so we'll kind of go into that as soon as Byron's done with it, but I think we'll let Byron have the floor and discuss everything, and he'll probably work hand in hand.
Okay, perfect.
Well, the whole thing about it is you're bringing a class B misdemeanor to 11 homes when you bring the sewer in to existing houses that are already there. If you, I've been reading your laws and you do have teeth to them. All you gotta do is go down and talk to the county attorney. And they can't come after us. So you're letting a developer bring class B misdemeanors to 11 homes, actually 14, when you go on 4700.
So
Where
if
he's bringing it from Buffalo.
you don't mind, maybe, if it's all right, I just want to give you a bigger picture. Yeah, I know what the background is, sorry. So, yeah, I've had a little bit of conversation with Commissioner Ferwarna. So to give you an idea, out on 2200 South and about 4700 West, there's two developments going in. One's called Buffalo Run Development and another one called Single Tree Development. Both the developments are bringing sewer from west of 4700 West, across 47 and down 2200. So coming down 2200, part of our ordinances, as far as in the sewer ordinance tile 36, I believe, or tile 36 is the sewer ordinance that requires anybody within 300 feet to connect to the sewer. And so I've kind of met with some of the individuals out there, and the word spread to all the remainder of the individuals. But so Single Tree is, just to give you a perspective, is right west of the new high school out west. So this will go through that area and affects 11 homes. And my involvement is really probably the biggest of trying to get sewer laterals stubbed out of the roadway, so the roadway is not getting cut up and everything through this process. So but through the process, we've had multiple conversations with Byron, and that's kind of where he's at as far as with our ordinance and the class B misdemeanor and things like that. So
Well, if you go from the church house to the fire station straight east, there are over 40 cuts in that road. 40, they've cut that road. So there's multiple concerns. There's the price is outrageous for the laterals. At $15,000, you've got 5 people that are retired on that road, or 4. You got a Down syndrome kid with no sidewalk. You've got to widen that road. We don't want our road tore up and then have to cut into a brand new road that they paved. It's got crown on it. It's just, it doesn't make sense the way it's looking, and that we're gonna go pave over the top of a bunch of sewer main and then come back and then dig across the road multiple times to put in laterals at $8,000 to go from the center of the road to the side. And people don't have that money out there. I've gone to neighbor and with Bones and talked, and people have that money. And then if they don't hook on, they're gonna be up against a misdemeanor.
It'll
So-
change.
And it's gonna be busy. It's not wide enough for that school. It's gonna be the major road coming in there. It just will be coming right off 4700. So there's multiple issues there, but certainly the cost of sewer seems a little ridiculous.
They doubled it from what the first quotes were on for the drops. They doubled it in price. They went from 30,000 to 72.
That was a guess.
And then you're in bed with Thurgood's in bed doing the excavation, because whoever the other excavator he had, how many times they had to dig up that sewer line? 7?
So we're replacing about 3,000 linear feet of sewer out there.
Okay, whoever is first, now Buck's got hired this guy to do it. Who says he's gonna get it right? Apparently, he's going with the cheapest one he can find and he's having trouble.
Well, and keep in mind, the other portion that they're redoing right now, really is irrelevant.
No, it's not, because it comes right up to our road and it's
Well-
crossing 4700, and so it does affect us. And now that's another story. When I talked to you about it, they're putting that line on private property with no access. There's no road there. How are you gonna get to that line when it is plugged?
So let me explain my comment for just a second, okay? The reason I say it's irrelevant is the cost is not being carried over to you for the redoing of that portion of the lines. The portion of the lines that they're redoing is entirely independent of what the cost would be to you guys. Now, like I explained to you on the phone, this is really a challenging situation. Was it Todd? Sorry, I'm really bad with names, so I apologize if I screw anybody's
No,
names
you're
up, so
fine. Call me Jack.
please forgive me. No, I'll try to get them right, gentlemen, but like I explained to Byron on the phone, Todd, it's part of the reason the ordinance was created the way it was. One of the things we're trying to avoid is what happens historically when a new sewer line comes in. If we don't right off the bat tell everybody to go connect to it, the time will come when the day will come when your septic tank starts to show signs of failure. And then at that point, usually there's new requirements that are in place, or something happens to where the health department says, no. We're not gonna allow you to repair that septic tank. You've got a perfectly good sewer line out there in front. The time is now to connect. And so what we don't wanna do is have a whole bunch of individual cuts through all this area, kind of like what you described.
I got a brand new septic system.
And so that's why we're coming to everybody saying, okay, guys, I know this is an inconvenient timing. We certainly aren't doing it to poke anyone in the eye for the cost of what it is. That it's not in our wheelhouse to
Why
make.
has it gone from 3,000 to the middle of the road to the side to 8,000 now?
Yeah.
That's what I don't-
So let me tell you, when I first came out, I says that's approximate on what they're gonna be. You know what I mean?
We're
I told you
guessing.
the time I was
Not
getting
exact
bids on it. So I went out and I asked Thurgood to give a bid, as well as probably about 4 or 5 other contractors. Thurgood's the only one that I've got a bid back from.
Why do they want so much, Chad?
So most of it is, so I got one other individual. Sorry, we're kind of jumping all over here.
I'll have
Which,
questions when you're done.
which is probably to be expected. It probably should have had my presentation before, but it didn't work out that way. But so the reason why I've understood it's gonna be more, we've got Thurgood's bid right here. They come out to be about $7,232 per connection, and that is stubbed out of the oil. $7,252.27. So, and that's stubbed out. So the idea that I was telling you guys when I was first out there, between 3,000 and 4,000 was for them to stub it out just when they're in a raw development, right?
Right.
So now you're looking at asphalt costs, looking for import coming back in, and you're looking for utilities that are around there as well. So I did talk with Ray Holmes with Rock Hard Excavating. He was able to tell me that it would be significantly more if he came and did them individually afterwards. So
One
and
at a
his,
time, you mean?
yeah,
one that-
so say if Byron, if you were to hire him to come out and do his, or even after Thurgood's gone through there to hire them to come out and do all of them, it would be more money for him to do it, where they're already there doing the line. It's easier for him to tie into and take off at that point. So
That's why they should be doing the drops when they do the line. Period.
And we would love to be able to do that. There's nothing in our ordinances that we can even require or ask the developer to do that. So.
Let me ask a
go ahead.
question here. So I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but it sounds like this part of the line is being replaced.
Installed.
All
New
brand
line.
new.
It doesn't exist currently.
Gotcha.
So in order to do the subdivisions,
Gotcha.
they have to install this
Install
section of
that.
main line to supply that. Does that make sense now?
It does, but if you're stubbing it at the time it's being installed,
The cost should be cheaper.
Which it is, just to give you an idea, Rockhart said they'd probably be between the 12 and 15,000 range to come do those lateral
To done-
connections.
After the road's done?
After Thurgood's gone through, for
Sure.
them to come and do every one of those individually, that's what they would be afterwards.
And
because
that's,
they're at different times and they're not going to a
Correct.
project.
but then you'd have multiple cuts in the road.
You'd have multiple cuts. I mean, the idea here why it's gonna be cheaper for Thurgood is it's just like you're saying, Brian, it's already dug up. They're right there. They're just doing the lateral
It's-
stubbing up. But they're going further than what the main line is.
But what it comes back to is your Chad Buck doesn't want to play with the rest of us in the sand pile, because he doesn't want anything to do with putting any laterals in for anybody else. All he cares about is his single tree subdivision and getting that sewer line in to sell those lots. And so we're already there. Why isn't he? And, you know, he should be putting those laterals in for us. Even if we have to pay a little bit, that's one thing. But I've been saying that all along, through all of the commissioner meetings, that we should have been included in their annexation, in their plots, not left out in the dark, in the weeds to fend for ourselves. Because like you're saying, each one of us go in, it's gonna be $2,000 just for a plot to have an engineering. He's got it
It was
worked out to where it was.
$2,000 just to get my annexation.
So now,
Unless I went in with my neighbors and then it brought it down to $300 a piece. It
That's
was
$300
$2,000 per person,
That's into Central Weaver.
just to
right?
get annexed.
So
now I'm at $18,000 to hook onto sewer to pay $56 a month.
now it's.
And right now I got a brand new septic system and I don't need to hook on, but it's a misdemeanor.
Sure, but sadly, we don't have any control over Central Weaver's costs. They're a completely different group and organization than we are, so we can't really dictate what Central Weaver charges for those connection fees. Does that make sense?
we're not talking about impact fees or anything. We're just talking about
Annexation.
getting our laterals,
Which
getting our
is-
drops.
The overall
The
cost
annexation cost goes to Central Weaver. We don't see a penny of that.
I'd like to say something when you get a minute.
Sure.
Okay, the thing is, I don't know if we're the first people in Weaver County or Taylor to have this issue. I mean, people squawk and complain because their taxes go up 1%, a few dollars a year. And then all of a sudden, we're paying up to $15,000 for living in a place that we haven't done anything wrong. As a matter of fact, when we move in, we have to pay extra money for a septic system that passes. So now we paid for the septic system and now you're saying this septic system is not good. So now we've got to pay all these thousands of dollars. We're residents there. I mean, it's insane that we have to pay so much money and this, as development happens, everybody else down the road is gonna have the same problem. It's just like, can you really fairly look at somebody and say, you're living in the house, you're trying to pay your house payment off, now you gotta take out another mortgage and pay for it till you're 85, 90 years old, just because you made the choice to live there? It's just, something's gotta be done. If it hasn't been done now, it's gotta be done in the future because
The developers are gonna keep coming to make their big money. Well, if they're buying their ground as cheap as what he did, you better believe he's gonna pay to bring that sewer in, and it's gonna affect everybody. And that's what you're dealing with. So if it's such a great deal, why don't the county help us? Why don't the county pay for our drops?
So, and just to go back to, I can kind of address your issue or your question there first, just so the commissioners know as well. This isn't kind of the first place this has happened to. I mean, we have the sewer line go in all over. In fact, in 99, 2001, when they ran the main line in for West Haven, that was when it first went into effect. And all those residents we had to go to and tell them they're connected. I wasn't here at the county at the time, but as I came in here in 2004, I was still dealing a little bit with the repercussions afterwards. But we have this happen multiple times after each of the developments. Yours is the first one. We try to entice the developers to say, hey, we're gonna waive the excavation permit fee, which is something we can do. Saves us or saves the developer a little bit of money, but then they install the laterals out to the property owners. Usually they're going through the roadway and it's a higher cost. This one was not very much. It was only like $1,500 for the excavation permit versus the 80,000 for the lateral. So in this case, the developer chose just to pay for the.
So the cost gone up exponentially, or is it?
So just to give you an idea, and I meant to have that printed out. This has been a little bit of a crazy morning for me, so I apologize, but in 2001, when I got here and all the agreements that we did, and that's kind of what I was gonna meet with the commissioners with after your meeting, is to see if they'd be willing or what their thoughts were on doing this. But in 2001, they went through and did an agreement to where the property owners would, the county paid for it, or Central Weaver paid for the installation of the lateral and the impact fee, and then they paid it back over a course of X amount of payments, whether that's 36 months or 48, that's what it was determined. Just to give you an idea though, Central Weaver's impact fee at that time was $309. And the lateral for the contractor to stub it out was $1,500. And you're looking at that in today's price, the impact fee's gone up to,
From 300.
So from $1,800 to 15,000.
so, yeah.
That's really
So-
the reflection of
so
what the
that-
cost is.
That doesn't, just to give everybody an idea, so looking back at this 14,000, the only two items that I'm talking about, there's the 7252 in the top of this list. And the 2631, that's your impact fee, and then the stub for the lateral. These other costs that you see as far as the lateral inspection, the pump and crush fill of the septic tank, and then the lateral to the house, which is just an assumption of the lateral to the house, right? So I went off of kind of yours, Todd, because I kind of knew where your septic tank was guesstimated at. And I went off of about a $30 linear foot at 140 feet for somebody to run a lateral, 4-inch lateral up to it. And that's where the $4,200 would come in. And that's what makes up the $14,000. So in the Central Weber one,
Then you'd have, but then the two people that didn't go in on the annexation are gonna have to spend $2,000 to go get their land.
and that doesn't deal with the annexation. If you look at the bottom here, there's two different fees that Central Weber has. You have the fee, if you're within the district, which right now is $41.35. And then you have a fee which you're outside of the district at $64.10. So if you're annexed, and you and I have had this discussion, Todd, back. If you're annexed, your monthly fee is cheaper than if you're not annexed. So it's not a requirement. I think I've talked to you on that, Brian, as well, Byron, that you don't have to annex. It's just your monthly fee is higher. So,
It's like $20 difference, isn't it?
yeah, it looks like
It's actually $9.
a little bit more than,
$9, is that?
You save $9 by getting it.
looks like it's about $20. So it looks
I
like
thought it was around 20 is what Kevin told me.
about 41.35 versus 60.
No, by the time you go with property tax, because you get property tax increases
Oh,
because of the
that's right.
sewer, then you save $9 by spending $2,000 to get annexed in.
I got you. That is true.
So by the time you get property tax, why would you get annexed in? If you're gonna not live there less than 10 years, don't get annexed.
Trying to finish what I started to say.
Sure.
These fees and all these charges that tie into sewer makes sense and price changes this. If you're putting a new home in there and you're taking out a loan and this is the cost of your home and sewer's part of it and everything, and you can go to the bank and you can get a loan. But just to throw $15,000 at it it's not right. And yeah, I mean, I don't know why we just can't look at that.
Yeah,
thing.
5 retired
How can
people and
we-
1 widow.
Okay,
Are we trying to force people like us out and then somebody will buy the
I'm
house and they can
I'm
afford
gonna
it?
let our attorney, talk. Now, Chris, I want you to talk about a couple of things, the misdemeanor. And then the requirement to hook on. Does it have, who's has the requirement? Why is it required? And is it immediate? As soon as that sewer lateral or that sewer line, trunk line goes down the road? Or is it, can there be a delay?
So I can address most of that, and I can research the parts that I don't know yet. So as far as a misdemeanor, there's a general code that says any violation, county code is a class A misdemeanor. That would be, up to the county attorney's discretion of whether or not to file a charge. It's rare. I have seen it happen before, with persistent code violations. As far as the ability to adjust this fee or waive it or have any say in it, I don't even really know if the county has much of an option because I believe this comes from state code, state law. I'm looking at it. It's also a health department regulation that when you're within 300 feet of a sewer connection, you're required by law to connect.
Right.
And so I don't know I don't believe the county really even has a say to be able to adjust this requirement at all. Because it's governed by the Division of Water Quality, which is they have given that jurisdiction over to the health department. And I just confirmed with our health department director, Brian Cowan, that it is in our wastewater regulations. That once you are within 300 feet of a sewer connection, you are required by law to connect.
Right, that's what we've been saying. We're
Well, then-
required to, and if you choose not to, each day in which such violations shall continue shall be deemed a separate offense. So every day.
I understand that this is going to be a very frustrating answer, and I'll try to say this with being sensitive, because I understand that this is a very large amount of money. And, people have limited incomes, but the county does not have the ability to waive the requirements of the law. That answer will not change. And so I really don't, like, the choice of whether to engage in, to commit a misdemeanor is up to the individual person who that code is applicable to. I don't want that to sound insensitive.
It's just the way it
It's
is.
just the way the law is written. If you choose to violate the law, there is a punishment for that. There's nothing we can do to change that.
And that's what we're saying. The developer's bringing it to our door through your engineering department. Cause you're allowing him to do it.
So there's also requirements on developers, and I'm not as well versed in this area, but they have to, if they're gonna be within 300 feet, provide the sewer, but there's also a requirement depending on the number of lots that they're going to be providing. You times that by the 300 feet, and they have to bring in sewer from great distances, so they can't just get out of it, but again, I'm just going from memory there.
So the county doesn't have the power to do that, but if the county can't afford this, if people in the county have to move out to keep up with these standards, why doesn't the county stop and think, because we are a part of the county, maybe we shouldn't be offering building permits and making growth go. We got this big giant state-of-the-art high school there, which doesn't fit the community because we're just a little windy one-lane road to get to it. I mean, maybe we gotta stop and think, let's quit trying to bring people in here until we figure out how we're gonna take care of the people that are there.
Sure, I mean, there's gonna be considerations as far as growth, but there are, zoning codes and building codes, and people have property rights and the ability to develop a property. It's probably more of a question, I would say, for the state legislature, if there is an issue with this particular code. I just don't see any way around it.
Gary, Chad?
And so the only thing I want to add to and what I was kind of bringing this for is, I mean, my heart really does go out to him because when I saw this, I mean, most of the connection fees that I've seen in the past have been closer to, with the impact fee is what the lateral is just in this case. And so I started conversations with Sean and with our comptroller, Scott Park, just trying to see, hey, what are the options out there? What can we do? Is there any possible way? Really, they didn't have much to say other than, as you look on the back of this sheet on page 2, and I guess I have enough of these that you guys could. These are if you want. And as well, but on the
Passing that out, I have a health department meeting tonight, and I can talk to the director. I don't know if there's any types of grants out there.
So
There are.
So there is, so in my conversation, I talked with Summer Day, who I asked to be here, but we've kind of moved this up and just because it worked better for most of us, but Summer says there are some funding out there through the state that you can get as long as your income's below, I think 72,000 is the number I believe she told me this morning. There's some funding available, and I think they help with those applications and the process of getting that through with the state. So with that, the only other option that we kind of had is right now I'm in our sewer fund, which is user fees. And Scott Park really wasn't apt to doing this much at all, but I mean, those user fees are set to replacement costs of what the sewer is, but use some of those funds to get the lateral stubbed out and then do an agreement similar to what's on page 2, which was what we kind of did back in 2001, where if the homeowner agreed to it, that they would, we would install it, they would pay us back, the $162 or $151 or whatever it is per month till that.
So that would
gets
eventually
paid
pay off
back.
the 14,000.
So essentially, it's a zero.
Or the-
That would be just for
Loan.
the,
Prorated over
just
the
the lateral 72.
A 0% loan.
Tell me more about Scott's take on that.
He just didn't feel, I mean, we tried to, we kicked around, Scott was supposed to be here as well, but I speak to it a little bit more, but they'll probably show up when we're done, but he just didn't have any funding mechanism that we would have here at the county that we could actually use to do it, and especially without the guarantee to know that we're gonna get paid back.
Right,
That
and
was
the
probably the
issue
biggest
with
thing.
user fees too is not just that. That's not what they're intended for, but then your users are paying for this.
Correct.
Your current users are paying for the.
Yeah. And I think that's where he came up and said, well, if we had an agreement and we had all the property owners sign it, you'd feel a little bit more comfortable. knowing that they're kind of bound a little bit to make a monthly payment to paying it back, but it still doesn't guarantee that they'll pay it back.
This way, there's an identified shorter, more optimal amount of time that money is obligated otherwise to kind of help these folks out. We get it. Like Chad explained, I think of it from my perspective. If somebody showed up on my doorstep and said, guess what? Surprise, you know, I've got a $15,000 bill that you did not have before previously. I get it. I have nothing but sympathy for all you three folks, as well as the other 8 homes and residents that are not here represented by those individuals as
Are there
well.
a total of 11? Are there more?
Yeah, so if you look
Somebody
on
over here
this,
said there were more.
I thought I counted 11. Did I?
So-
That's on 22. He's bringing it from Buffalo Run, so it'll affect those ones on 47 as well.
Oh,
so there was one on Gibson's and I believe they installed the lateral to that through the agreement with Dick Gibson. But
Point is, we're, believe it or not, we're sympathetic to this situation, probably more than it comes across. The challenge is, kind of like, Mr. Crockett explained, is we don't really have as much control over this as it probably feels like we should. We don't have control over the cost. The costs are dictated by what the contractors are telling us, as well as by what the service providers are dictating. Those are non-negotiable. Those are what they are. We can't fix that. We can't change that. The other factor is the law is there. And the law is essentially adopted as per state ordinance that trickles down through county ordinance, which, Byron, I apologize. That's probably different than I told you the other day on the phone. I was thinking it was only county, but I didn't realize it was state as well too. But the idea
I couldn't
is,
find it in state, but I found it in county.
but the general idea is it's done from a perspective to improve overall water quality conditions. And Todd, this sucks. This is miserable timing that you just barely went in and updid your septic system and you did the right thing and I don't remember your name at the end of.
Mike.
Sorry, Mike. I told you I was bad with names. Mike, you're in the same situation. You and Byron, you guys have been living here. You haven't done anything wrong, right? You negotiated your home loan. You did what you did. Kudos to you. You've been doing what you're supposed to do, but sadly, we're kind of in a situation where the ordinance dictates what we can and or have to do.
I don't know if the health department, they're likely gonna give you the same answer, but they're having their board meeting tonight. You're welcome to come and give public comment to talk about the issue as well. And I don't know, they have some ideas about the grants. I don't know if there's any other ideas that they have.
We have the grants, and then sorry to interrupt you, Chris, but to Todd's situation, I don't know if there's some flexibility on a brand new system and whether, I mean, I'm reading it, I know what it says at the time it's installed, but I wonder if there's any flexibility with the health department.
We
You
should
know,
ask
to wait until it reaches failure, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would love to have that.
Well, then it's
conversation.
gonna cost somebody 20,000.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
It will.
Todd, you're absolutely correct. So
So
if the
you hook
count
on
is,
now, like, and I'll be honest, for me, I'll just pay the damn money, right? It's my neighbors that don't have money. And that's why I'm here. I can hook on. I can do that.
and that's
But what's happening is not right. For an 85-year-old man with heart failure and a single woman and all these people on the street, it's just wrong. That's why I'm here. I got 15,000. I can hook on today. I'm not here for me.
They won't let you.
And my septic system is perfect. It works great and I don't need another one.
sure.
It was designed a few years ago. It works great. I got a brand new tank,
I'm sure it does.
but it's just wrong.
Well, and I'm not here to argue whether it's
And I
Right or
understand the
wrong,
law
it's-
is the law,
correct.
but it's still wrong.
Well, yeah, yeah.
So let me address this, Commissioner Willis, just so you guys know, I mean, I've talked to Summer and usually Summer in the health department. Kind of speaking for her, which I don't really mean to do that, but they usually don't go instigate this unless it's a failing septic system. That's usually when it comes time for it, when they really.
But then
really
it's
push the issue.
$20,000, $30,000.
You know,
Now are we struggling in- are they gonna, they're used to a cost of living, right?
Sure.
Correct.
At $56 a month plus you're a certain age and it just, you start adding that up. A grant for 70,000, 70,000 for 2 people is not a lot of
So
money.
it's not 70,000, it's just you have to make under 70,000 as a couple before you can even get the grant for whatever that dollar amount may be, which I don't know. So, the unfortunate thing is a property owner understanding what a failure of a septic system is and what a failure is could be two different things as well. But usually they don't ever know when a septic system's failing because not too many people go give that info or disclose that information because it's gonna cost them money. If you do look at our county code, Chris and Liam, on 36-1-6, and this is all in that little packet that I've got to you on like the third page, but at the very bottom of it, and I should have brought my glasses, but it states at the very bottom, so if I misstate something, it says, if the property owner has received a variance from the sewer connection requirements of the Weaver Morgan Health Department. So in this case, but I mean, it still goes back to the same thing with you, Todd. I mean, exponentially, if you're looking at 20 years down the road, if it was 1,500 back then or 1,800, you're now up to 14,000.
As soon as you widen that, the road right now isn't wide enough for that school. We all know that. But even if I waited until you guys filled in that road, right? And before you widened it, as soon as you widen it, it's gonna cost more money because they're gonna have to
More
dig across
asphalt.
more asphalt.
Yep.
So you either do it in the next year or it goes up exponentially. I mean, just, you either have to do it now at that cost or you get a much bigger cost. I mean, I see it, but is there nothing the county can do?
We don't know.
Is that it really?
We don't know what the variance is yet. I need to talk to the health department to see how long that can last, if it's in perpetuity, as long as the system's in good working order. I just don't know yet. I don't know what how long that can go, because I understand when you say, you know, the costs are gonna continue going up, fees are never gonna go down.
Right.
But I think it's worth asking the health department to see what the options are.
I think so too, Chris.
And Todd, like you say, the longer you wait on this, the higher costs go, just looking at how much costs have gone up in the last 15 years, just for the installation of the service, right? And it's just, it really is a vicious cycle on this, right? So, yeah, we could go down the road and say, okay, we'll wait till the existing septic systems.
Widen the
fail.
road and put in sidewalks, then let's dig.
But you're right, Todd, you're right, because then at that point, not just the cost of the work has gone up, but the amount of impacts as a result of the work has gone up, right? If I'm capturing that correctly, and so that's why we're bringing it up today, and
Yeah, the problem is, you're bringing it up to the wrong group. I think it's pretty clear. This is state controlled. The Division of Water Quality through the legislature has given the health department, not the county, the ability to make the determination. So it's actually state law. Not, we could do everything in the book and not be able to touch it unless, so what my suggestion is you probably need to go down and talk to your state legislator. And if you want to make a change, make it there. Two things that, yeah, and I don't disagree that you guys are getting the short end of the stick. 30 years ago, I moved to West Haven. It wasn't West Haven then. I got the same impact. And they brought in sewer, and I had a perfectly good septic system at that time. I decided to hook up because, you know, again, I said sooner or later, this system will fail, and most septic tanks at some point will fail. My experience with the health department, I spent 4 years on, and then through private development, is they typically never enforce that until the septic tank fails. Now, again, that's their discretion, you know, that would require a variance, but again, talk to the health department, talk to the state. That's your avenues forward. Look at the variance. One thing that I've suggested from a county perspective, that's just a kind of discussion time, is for future development. Again, this doesn't help you guys, but I think it's probably something we could do through our land use code, is if you're running a sewer to a development that you've got to go through or buy existing homes, there needs to be some type of arrangements made. When I say arrangements, financial arrangements, the time to hook the sewer up is when that line's open. You know, it doesn't do any good to cut roads, to cut sidewalk. When that line's put in, that's the time to run your laterals. Not the time you necessarily have to hook up, but you should have a lateral there when you make that decision to hook
So
up.
Commissioner, what would you do in the future about that?
So if the developer,
What would you do about that?
require that developer to stub out, to put the lateral in, make arrangements with those homeowners prior to final approval. That arrangement may be financial, it may be, okay, I'll run the laterals. I'm not gonna say, look, you've got to run laterals for every home that you pass. But you have to come basically with a letter saying, look, I've talked to all these owners, here's the arrangements that we've made. We'll put the laterals cost, it's a lot cheaper to do it on the initial install, not 2 years or year after. We know that.
Commissioner Burrow, I think that's what I was thinking too, along the lines of for the future is, developers pay for the impacts they make on the community. And this should be one that's considered.
Yeah, to me, that's the fairest arrangement. If I'm running a sewer line past an existing to get it to a new development, then, and if there's 4 homes on there, I need to show that, and again, depending on how, aggressive you want to get, but there should be arrangements made with those owners. They've gone to it, they contacted, we'll run a lateral and they basically say, look, here's the lateral. You can pay me off, you can pay for this lateral over the next 3 years or 5 years, whatever, at a cost. If it goes past that and you don't hook up, then, but so it's really a financial arrangement, financial decision.
That's a really good idea that I think we need to explore to see how far we can press the developers
Yeah.
before it becomes an illegal exaction.
Well,
because they're having an impact on the community, and
Yeah.
so we should I certainly think we should look into that.
I think
legal
that's a
issue.
great conversation for
so
future,
that's-
for today.
Yeah, that's where I'd like
Let's
to
talk
head
with the
this.
health department about the variance.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the timeline.
Yeah.
And
And
see
then
what we can
I'd
find
say
there.
let's sit down with planning to see if
So-
we can, in part of the development agreements, negotiate
Mhm.
That has to come in with the development
the
agreement.
assistance.
Not,
if you're bringing in
unfortunately,
sewer.
the horse is out of the barn for you guys.
Oh, I'll follow up,
Yeah.
believe me.
But again.
To make sure something's
So,
done, cause I don't want this to happen to anybody
You talk
else.
to the wrong people. Talk to the state.
Well, no, but you can do something in the county, right?
Well, we can
For
for the
future,
future.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
We can for the future, actually.
And I'll
Yeah.
make sure that I will watch for that, Commissioner, I will.
So for you three and the others you're representing who aren't here, let's have that conversation with the health department. Let's find out about the grant.
And with Scott here, can we have just a quick conversation about can we tap into existing fees to do a loan? We talked about that, but we weren't quite sure what that would look like.
So I talked to John Bonner, which I apologize for being a little late, I was talking to him about this. The fund balance of the Lower Valley Sewer System is not sufficient to handle this, nowhere, it would take over half the fund balance just to put the $7,000 connection in. Well, get it all in the house. And we could try a payback, over several years if I borrowed the money from John Bond, but he's gonna charge me interest, which is 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
And that's still gonna be, $160, $170 a month on top of the existing sewer charge, so it just doesn't seem like a very good option. It's gonna be very pricey if we were to do that and try to finance it through the county. And we're only covering half the cost. They still have to come up with $7,000 to pay the impact fees and to get the sewer from the stuff to the house.
So is that what you're saying then, is it's up to each resident then to go from the middle to and run their own lateral?
At this point, yes.
Yeah, so I'm looking at what I have is I'm $14,000 rounded, and about 7,000 of that is coming from the lateral.
Out of the roadway.
Yeah, and then the rest of the other 7,000 is the impact fee plus the connection of the house to that.
So each resident will need to contact either Thurgood to do it while they're doing it, or they'll have to contact somebody to come in after and do it.
Correct. I think that's how we're right now, unless we can come
I
up
think
with.
we.
So then Thurgood can charge whatever he wants because he's got free reign now.
So-
See what happens?
So, and that's where
He can charge whatever he wants, as long as it's less than $12,000, he can get whatever he wants.
And I tried to get multiple bids so that.
I know you
not
did,
only-
Chad, I love you.
Not
You know it's
only-
not against you.
It's just I mean, I really did try to get it, so we knew that we're getting a fair price or anything, cause I still don't know. I mean, I have Hard Rock that said, yeah, if we came in later, it's gonna be this much, but that's the only other person that I've got. How do I know if this is fair or not? I don't, but once they're done and out of there, at this point, if we have no funding mechanism, it's up to the individuals. You use Thurgood or you hire somebody on your own to do it, if you can find somebody else that'll do it. As long as they have a license to go do that work and a license.
And the developer gets to walk away just with a smile on his face
And
and
we
he's
did,
happy.
we did have a conversation with Charlie on this just yesterday about the possibilities of doing that, so.
Another thing to consider for the impact fee every service district has rules regarding waivers of impact fees. I don't know what Central Weavers would be, what they would consider as far as justifying a waiver. I assume they'd be hesitant just because they don't want to open up the floodgates, but I do know that they have the ability to waive impact fees.
Mhm. They do.
So
You're saying the $2,600?
whatever the,
Yeah, the 2,600.
not the actual.
Then
hard
once they
costs,
start that
but the
precedent,
impact
that's
fee.
gonna be.
And that, but it's worth having a conversation with them, I think.
Yeah.
Just to
We
say.
only have till the end of this week to have that conversation.
That's right. That's why I want it goes up to 35.
That's right.
Does go up another 900
But
bucks.
we see, we have to pay that before the end of the,
Oh, that is right.
that's.
July
yeah.
1. Yeah.
We're right.
At least I gave that to
We're
you
right
before
there.
now. I tried to get you as much information.
But,
We don't have any choice.
but keep in mind, that's.
I know, you can't gonna make that kind of interest on 2,000 in a year, so that's
Yeah.
why we're decided we're gonna pay it now. And we're trying to get ahead. The best thing for us to do, if we could come to a common ground with the people and Singletree. But that figure for an open hole for a drop is pretty out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think I probably already mentioned it, but Ray Holmes, his biggest thing was, he says there's so many utilities. You got a pressure sewer, you've got 2 irrigation lines, you've got the gas, you've got 2 water lines. It's just flooded with utilities, and so I think even the sewer main that you're going through is gonna be a very, very slow go, just because of all the utilities in there.
I hope it costs them $1 billion to get up that road.
Well,
I hope they go
I'll tell you what, I mean, just for the developer, I mean, and they've worked together, these 2 developers, Buffalo Run and Singletree, I mean, they've brought that sewer line, offsite improvements, well over 2,000 linear feet just themselves to get it to their property, and some of that is still gonna be coming past down 22, even in excess of that. So they've been paying a pretty penny just to get it up to their development, not only the costs that'll be going in, so. I wish there's a way that we could require it. I'm just not aware of anything that we can at this point.
Each of those 11 homes has to have its own permit, right, for a connection fee.
Yeah, and so on here, when you look at this, there's 2 different fees that you're talking about. Right now, there's gonna be a lateral inspection fee, and that's for Gary's staff to come out and actually look at that. I would suggest to the county commissioners that we could easily waive that. We're gonna be out there inspecting the line anyways, so it's not a real huge issue for us to do that. If you do come in afterwards, not only is there that fee, but there would be another $90 excavation permit fee that your contractor would have to do. I would recommend to the commission that we would waive that as well, but that's a decision for them or Gary to make, not me. Just a recommendation, but when you're looking at the overall prices here, very minuscule amount compared to the total amount.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, on what we can help you with,
I know.
Everything helps, which we're more than happy to do, given we're given that kind of permission and.
I talked to another construction company or excavation company, and that's a leading tech out of Brigham City. And I quoted him these figures, this 72. And he thought they were a little high too for an open hole. And so there's another one we can check with.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to pay our impact fees now, but we've got to check with these other guys.
I mean, if we can get, I mean, I got 3 of the guys that told me, they says, hey, we don't even got the time to do the work. We're not even gonna give you the amount.
Well,
So,
leading tech said they've worked with Thurgood before, and if it's an open hole, then maybe they can
yeah,
play in the same sandbox
we have
together.
no issues
You know,
with another
Sure.
contractor coming in and doing it.
And we've talked about that too. Getting somebody else.
That's something else
So-
to look into for sure. So, and then Chris, you and I will talk to
Yes,
the health department,
absolutely.
and then you'll hear back from Gary and or Chad.
Yep.
On what we can do here, and then moving forward, we'll have that
Yeah, I
conversation.
think it's a.
With
discussion
the
that we should look
developers
at.
and when they come through, there's gotta be more accountability. I'm just.
And and I think that's the intent of the county when they develop it. We're always having conversations about their impact on the community,
Yeah.
and this is just one that hasn't been addressed, and we
Sure.
can address that in the future.
But the horse might be out of the pasture, but it ain't cleared. It ain't cleared that fence. I'm telling
So
you,
here's the-
he hasn't dug a
This is
line
the
on
actual bid
22
from
yet.
Thurgood, so you guys-
So that's why I'm saying,
I don't disagree.
there's,
with you.
they can be captured before it gets out.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Go get a rope around it, but I'd start heading to a little
I've got a
white
good rope.
building down there on the hill. It's called the Capitol. If I was in your shoes, that's where I'd be going. You get a hold of your favorite legislator and. Say,
I'll
hey,
worry about you.
yes.
I'll make sure you follow up.
Well, I can't do state in Portland anymore.
No, but the county, I'll follow up.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thank you
You guys.
for your time.
thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
All right.
We finish early too?
Yeah, because we got
pushed up.
Yeah, we had another
Well,
15
it's
minutes.
just the sheriff went first.
Okay, so that was great.
I'm assuming that took care of our 3:30.
That's why I say our 3:30 moved to 3.